Princess Juno, heir to the Kytion throne, vanished from her royal chambers, leaving behind only the faint scent of unfamiliar chemicals and a room in disarray. The feline-like Caitians, masters of advanced technology and zealous guardians of their isolation, faced an unprecedented crisis. Their future leader, snatched away in the dead of night by a rival alien faction, now stood as a pawn in a dangerous game of interstellar politics. As news of the abduction spread, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Diplomats from 100 worlds debated furiously, their voices echoing through the grand chamber. In the end, fear of sparking an interstellar war led to a unanimous decision: non-intervention. Roger Roberts, the human diplomat assigned to the Kytion homeworld, sat in his office, staring at the classified report on his desk. His mind raced back to his last encounter with Princess Juno, their heated argument over Earth's petition to join the Galactic Alliance still fresh in his memory. Despite their mutual dislike, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was now her only hope. As night fell on the Kytion capital, Roger slipped through the shadows, his heart pounding. He'd uncovered information about a secret passage into the kidnapper's stronghold, a piece of intelligence that could change everything. But using it meant risking not just his career, but his life. Failure would mean certain execution, and possibly war between Earth and the Caitians. Pushing aside his doubts, Roger infiltrated the Kytion Palace's restricted archives. His fingers flew over ancient tomes and holographic displays, searching for detailed maps of enemy territory. As he pieced together the information, a chilling realization struck him. The kidnappers were the Vorax, a reptilian species with a long-standing vendetta against the Caitians. Buried deep in the archives, Roger stumbled upon a crucial piece of information. The Vorax had a weakness. Certain earth spices caused temporary paralysis in their reptilian biology. Without hesitation, he made his way to the human embassy's kitchen, filling his pockets with carefully selected spices. As Roger prepared to leave the palace, a shadow detached itself from the wall. His hand flew to his concealed weapon, but he froze as he recognized the Kytion king. The monarch's eyes, filled with desperation and hope, met Roger's. Without a word, the king pressed a small device into Roger's hand. Advanced Kytion stealth technology, a silent blessing for the unauthorized rescue mission. Using the stealth tech, Roger infiltrated a Kytion military base. He moved like a ghost through the facility, finally reaching his target, a small but powerful spaceship perfect for a covert operation. As he prepared for launch, his communicator buzzed. An encrypted message from an unknown source revealed Princess Juno's exact location within the Vorax compound. The warning was clear. She would be executed in 48 hours if demands weren't met. With the weight of 2 civilizations on his shoulders, Roger launched his stolen ship under the cover of darkness. He expertly maneuvered through Kytion orbital defenses, his years of training paying off as he evaded detection. Setting course for Vorax space, he knew his next actions would either save or doom Earth and Kytia. As the stars streaked by, Roger checked his equipment one last time. Earth spices, Kytion stealth tech, and his own determination. These were the tools he had to rescue a princess who despised him and prevent an interstellar war. The mission was impossible, the odds astronomical, but Roger allowed himself a grim smile. After all, humanity had a knack for defying the impossible. As Roger's stolen Kytion ship sliced through the inky void of Vorax space, he marveled at the effectiveness of the stealth technology. The vessel ghosted past Vorax patrols and defense satellites, invisible to their sensors. His hands danced across the control panel, guiding the ship towards a planet where Princess Juno was held captive. Nearing the planet's upper atmosphere, Roger activated a series of sensor drones. The small, disc-like devices shot out from the ship's hull, their Kytion cloaking technology rendering them virtually undetectable. As they spread out in a wide array, Roger's display lit up with a wealth of real-time data. There, he muttered, zooming in on a heavily fortified compound. The drones provided a detailed overlay of guard positions, security measures, and potential entry points. Roger's eyes narrowed as he studied the information, searching for a weakness. Suddenly, his heart sank. An unexpected complication appeared on the screen, a shimmering energy dome encasing the entire compound. "Blast it!" Roger hissed, realizing the Kytion stealth tech would be useless against such a barrier. He leaned back in his seat, mind racing. The mission parameters had just changed dramatically. Without access to the compound, the rescue was impossible. Roger forced himself to take a deep breath, then dove back into the data, searching for a solution. After what felt like hours, a pattern emerged. Roger's eyes lit up as he spotted a maintenance tunnel leading to the shield generator's cooling system. It was a small opening, but it might be enough. Working quickly, Roger accessed the ship's fabrication unit. His fingers flew over the controls as he designed a small, insect-like robot. The device was barely larger than his thumb, with delicate legs and a compartment for a special payload, the earth spices he had brought along. As the fabricator hummed to life, Roger programmed the robot's mission parameters. It would navigate the maintenance tunnel, locate the cooling system, and release its spicy cargo. If his calculations were correct, the spices would be dispersed throughout the compound when the system activated. With the robot completed, Roger began searching for a safe landing site. He found a dense forest just outside the compound's sensor range and carefully set the ship down, using the natural canopy for cover. As he gathered his equipment, including a portable holographic disguise unit, Roger's communicator buzzed. An encrypted message scrolled across the screen, causing his eyebrows to shoot up in surprise. "Commander Cragg," he whispered, reading the name of the disgraced Kytion military officer. The message revealed Cragg's true status as a double agent within Vork society and offered assistance from the inside. Roger weighed his options. Cragg's help could be invaluable, but trusting a known exile was risky. Before he could decide, movement in the forest caught his attention. He dropped into a defensive crouch, hand on his weapon. "Wait!" A voice called out softly. "I'm here to help." A slender figure emerged from the shadows. Roger's eyes widened as he recognized the distinctive scales and elongated snout of a Vorax. But this one was different, younger, with eyes that held intelligence and compassion rather than aggression. "I'm Zix," the young Vorax said, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I'm a scientist here, and I've been waiting for a chance to stop this madness." Roger studied her for a moment, then slowly lowered his weapon. "How did you know I was coming?" Zix's scales rippled in what Roger guessed was a Vorax equivalent of a shrug. "I intercepted communications about the kidnapping when I detected your ship's entry into our atmosphere. Yes, even with your stealth technology, I hoped someone had finally come to help." Over the next few minutes, Zix provided Roger with crucial information about the compound's layout and security protocols. She also warned him about General Scar, the mastermind behind Princess Juno's abduction. "Scar is ruthless," Zix said, her voice low. "He has a personal vendetta against the Kytion royal family. You must be extremely careful." With Zix's insights, Roger quickly formulated a plan. He would use his holographic disguise to pose as a Vorax guard, while Zix created a distraction in the research wing. Meanwhile, the insect robot would make its way to the shield generator's cooling system. As night fell on the Vorax world, Roger activated his disguise. The air shimmered around him, and suddenly a Vorax guard stood in his place. He nodded to Zix, who slipped away towards the research wing. Roger approached the compound's entrance, his heart pounding. He forced himself to adopt the confident stride of a Vorax soldier as he reached the security checkpoint. "Identification," the guard grunted. Roger held out the forged credentials Zix had provided. For a heart-stopping moment, The guard scrutinized them. Then, with a curt nod, he waved Roger through. Inside the compound, Roger navigated the maze-like corridors, constantly on alert for any sign that his disguise had been compromised. He made his way towards the detention area, knowing that every second counted. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Roger's hand flew to his weapon, certain he had been discovered. Then he realized this was Zix's distraction. Taking advantage of the chaos, Roger quickened his pace. Guards and personnel rushed past him, heading towards the research wing. He pressed himself against the wall, letting them pass, then continued his journey to the detention block. As he rounded a corner, Roger came face to face with a towering Vorx officer. The reptilian eyes narrowed, studying Roger intently. For a moment, Roger was certain his disguise had failed. "You there," the officer barked. "Why aren't you at your post?" Roger's mind raced. He straightened his posture, mimicking the Vorx guards he had observed. "Sir, I was ordered to check the detention level security. With the breach in the research wing, we can't be too careful." The officer held his gaze for what felt like an eternity. Then he nodded sharply. "Proceed. Report any anomalies immediately." As the officer strode away, Roger released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He was in the clear for now. But as he approached the detention level, he knew the real challenge was just beginning. Somewhere beyond those heavy doors, Princess Juno awaited rescue, and time was running out. Out! Roger steeled himself, knowing that the most dangerous part of his mission was about to begin. As he reached for the door controls, a commotion erupted behind him. A group of Vorx scientists, their scales glistening with sweat, came barreling down the corridor. In their panic to escape whatever chaos Zix had unleashed in the research wing, they collided with Roger, sending him stumbling against the wall. For a split second, Roger's holographic disguise flickered, revealing his human features. He quickly regained his composure, but not before a sharp-eyed Vorx guard named Krax caught a glimpse of his true identity. Krax's eyes narrowed, but he remained silent, choosing instead to discreetly follow Roger through the compound. Unaware of his compromised disguise, Roger pressed on. He passed through several security checkpoints, his stolen uniform and air of purpose allowing him to blend seamlessly with the confusion around him. Alarms blared intermittently, and Vorx personnel rushed past, their attention focused on the disturbance in the research wing. As Roger approached the high-security area, his communicator buzzed. He ducked into an alcove and activated the device, revealing a message from Commander Cragg. "Roberts." Cragg's gruff voice came through, tinged with urgency. "Scar's lost patience. He's moved up the timeline. The princess has less than 2 hours. Move fast." Roger's mind focused. The already tight window for rescue had just shrunk dramatically. He quickened his pace, aware of the precious seconds ticking away. Suddenly, he noticed subtle changes in the Vorx around him. Guards stumbled slightly, their movements less coordinated. Scientists rubbed their eyes, looking disoriented. A small smile played on Roger's lips. The earth spices were beginning to take effect. Reaching the detention block, Roger found it heavily guarded despite the chaos elsewhere. He needed a diversion. Pulling out the small device Zix had provided, he triggered a false alarm in a nearby section. As hoped, most of the guards rushed to investigate, leaving the path to Princess Juno's cell relatively clear. Roger approached the cell, his heart pounding. He deactivated his holographic disguise, revealing his human form to the surprised princess within. Juno's feline eyes widened, a mix of confusion and distrust evident in her expression. "Roberts," she hissed, "what in the name of the 7 moons are you doing here?" "Rescuing you, Your Highness," Roger replied, his fingers flying over the locking mechanism. "I know we have our differences, but right now, we need to move. Scar's planning to execute you in less than 2 hours." Juno's fur bristled. "And why should I trust you?" "Because right now, I'm your only chance of getting out of here alive," Roger said, finally bypassing the lock. The cell door slid open with a soft hiss. Before Juno could respond, a shout rang out behind them. "Intruder! Human spy!" Roger whirled around to see Cracks, the guard who had been tailing him, pointing an accusing finger in his direction. Cracks slammed his hand on a nearby alarm panel, and immediately, sirens began to wail throughout the facility. "Time to go, Your Highness," Roger said, grabbing Juno's arm. The princess hesitated for a moment, then nodded, following Roger as they sprinted away from the approaching guards. They raced through the corridors, the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind them. Vork's forces were converging on their location, but many were visibly affected by the Earth's spices, their movements sluggish and uncoordinated. As they rounded a corner, Roger's communicator buzzed again. He activated it on the run, surprised to see a message from an unexpected source. "King Lyron, Princess Juno's father. Roberts." The Kytion monarch's voice crackled through the device. "I've been monitoring your progress. There's a secret escape route built into the compound, constructed by Kytion prisoners during the last war. Head to the East Wing, 3rd level. Look for a maintenance panel marked with 3 diagonal scratches." "Father," Juno gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Before Roger could respond, a group of Vorks guards appeared at the end of the hallway, led by a towering figure Roger recognized as General Scar. The general's eyes blazed with fury, but his movements were jerky and uneven. The Earth's spices were affecting him too. "This way," Roger shouted, pulling Juno down a side corridor. They sprinted towards the East Wing, dodging disoriented Vork's personnel and leaping over fallen debris. As they reached the 3rd level, a familiar voice called out, "Roger, over here." It was Zix, the young Vork scientist who had helped him infiltrate the compound. She was crouched behind an overturned console, her scales pale with fear. "I can't get out," Zix said, her voice trembling. "They've locked down all exits. I'm trapped." Roger hesitated, torn between his mission to save the princess and the urge to help their unexpected ally. Juno tugged at his arm, her eyes darting between Roger and the approaching sounds of pursuit. "We can't leave her," Roger said finally, extending his hand to Zix. "Come on, we know a way out." As Zix scrambled to join them, a blast of energy scorched the wall inches from Roger's head. General Scar had caught up, his weapon raised despite his wavering stance. "The maintenance panel," Juno hissed, pointing to a section of wall marked with 3 diagonal scratches. Roger rushed to the panel, his fingers searching for a hidden mechanism. Behind them, Scar's unsteady footsteps grew closer, accompanied by the shouts of his troops. With a click, the panel slid open, revealing a dark passageway beyond. Roger ushered Juno and Zix inside, then dove in after them just as another energy blast sizzled past. As the panel slid shut behind them, plunging them into darkness, Roger knew their escape was far from assured. They still had to navigate this unknown tunnel, evade their pursuers, and somehow make it back to his ship. And even if they succeeded, the political fallout from this rescue would be enormous. But for now, they were alive, and they were moving. Roger activated a small light, illuminating their path forward. "Let's go," he said, leading the way into the uncertain depths of the escape tunnel. The darkness of the escape tunnel enveloped Roger, Princess Juno, and Zix as they moved swiftly through the narrow passageway. The faint glow from Roger's light cast eerie shadows on the rough-hewn walls, revealing years of disuse and neglect. "We need to move faster," Roger whispered, his voice tight with urgency. "Scar won't be far behind." As if on cue, distant shouts echoed through the tunnel, accompanied by the sound of heavy footfalls. The general's fury seemed to seep through the very rock around them. "This way," Juno hissed, her feline eyes adjusting quickly to the low light. She took the lead, her movements graceful and sure-footed despite the uneven ground. Zix stumbled, her reptilian form less suited to the confined space. Roger caught her arm, steadying her. "Stay close," he murmured. "We're in this together now." They pressed on, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter as they twisted through the labyrinthine passages. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a wider chamber. Rusted machinery and abandoned tools littered the floor, remnants of the Kytion prisoners' forced labor. "Look!" Zix pointed to a control panel set into the far wall. "That might still be connected to the compound systems." Roger approached the panel, brushing away years of dust. To his surprise, a faint light still pulsed within. He activated his communicator, connecting it to the ancient interface. "Commander Cragg," he whispered, "do you read me?" Static crackled, then cleared. "Roberts, where the hell are you?" "Underground escape route. We've got the princess and a Vorix defector. What's our status?" Cragg's voice was grim. "Not good. SCAR's activated emergency protocols. The compound's going into lockdown, and he's deployed elite trackers. You need to move now." Roger relayed the information to Juno and Zix. The princess's ears flattened against her head, while Zix's scales rippled with anxiety. "The Earth's spices," Zix said suddenly. "They're spreading through the ventilation system. Most Vorix will be affected, but the elites, they're trained to resist such influences." Roger nodded, his mind racing. "We can use that. The regular guards will be disoriented, creating chaos. We just need to avoid the elites." They pushed on, following the tunnel as it sloped upwards. The air grew thinner, tinged with the acrid smell of malfunctioning equipment. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting intermittent shadows that danced across their faces. As they neared a junction, voices drifted from a side passage. Roger held up a hand, signaling for silence. A group of Vorix guards stumbled into view, their movements uncoordinated and sluggish. "You there," one of them slurred, squinting at the trio. "What's going on?" Zix stepped forward, her posture shifting to mimic authority. "Security breach in Sector 7. All personnel are to report to the main hangar immediately." The guards blinked, their drug-addled minds struggling to process the order. After a moment of confusion, they shuffled away, muttering among themselves. "Quick thinking," Juno whispered, a hint of admiration in her voice. They pressed on, navigating through a maze of corridors that seemed to shift and change with each turn. Roger's communicator buzzed again, Cragg's voice crackling through. "Roberts, SCAR's on to you. He's activated a backup power system and sealed off sections of the compound. You need to find an alternate route." Roger cursed under his breath. "Any suggestions?" "There's a maintenance shaft 2 levels up. It should lead you to the main hangar. From there, you're on your own." The trio quickened their pace, adrenaline pushing them forward. They encountered more disoriented Vorix along the way, using a combination of Zix's knowledge and Roger's quick thinking to bluff their way past. As they climbed through the maintenance shaft, the distant sound of alarms grew louder. The compound was coming back to life, and with it, the danger of discovery. They emerged into a dimly lit corridor, the walls vibrating with the hum of machinery. Ahead, a massive door loomed, the words "main hangar" etched into its surface. "This is it," Roger said, his voice low. "Once we're through, we make a run for the ship. No stopping, no matter what." Juno nodded, her muscles tensing in anticipation. Zix took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. Roger placed his hand on the door's control panel, ready to trigger their final dash to freedom. As the massive portal began to slide open, revealing the chaotic scene beyond, he knew that their true test was only just beginning. The hangar stretched out before them, a cavernous space filled with Vork's soldiers and vehicles. Alarms blared, and orders were shouted across the den. In the distance, Roger spotted his stolen Kytion ship, tantalizingly close yet surrounded by enemy forces. Now or never, he muttered, reaching for the makeshift EMP device they had cobbled together. With a silent prayer to whatever cosmic forces might be listening, he activated it. A wave of energy pulsed through the hangar. Vork's communication devices crackled and died. Vehicles sputtered and stalled. For a moment, everything was plunged into confusion and darkness. "Run!" Roger shouted, and they burst into the chaos. Chaos of the hangar, the confusion caused by the EMP, gave them a precious few seconds of advantage as they sprinted towards the Kytion ship. Alarms blared and emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across the vast space. Vork's soldiers stumbled about, disoriented by both the Earth's spices and the sudden loss of their equipment. Roger led the way, weaving through the maze of grounded ships and scattered cargo. "There!" Juno shouted, her keen feline eyes spotting their target. The sleek Kytion vessel stood out among the bulkier Vork ships. As they approached, Roger activated the remote access code he'd prepared earlier. The ship's hatch hissed open, inviting them in. Quickly, Roger urged, ushering Juno and Zix inside. He cast a final glance over his shoulder, seeing General Scar emerge from a side entrance, his face contorted with rage. Roger dove into the ship, sealing the hatch behind him. His fingers flew over the control panel, initiating the launch sequence. The ship's engines roared to life, drowning out the chaos outside. "Hang on," he shouted as the ship lifted off, the inertial dampeners struggling to keep up with the sudden acceleration. They burst through the hangar's force field, emerging into the inky blackness of space. Behind them, Vork's fighters scrambled to give chase. "We're not out of this yet," Roger muttered, his eyes fixed on the navigation display. "There's an asteroid field ahead. It's risky, but it might be our only chance to lose them." Juno strapped herself into the co-pilot seat, her royal training kicking in as she assessed the situation. "Do it," she commanded, her voice steady despite the danger. As they plunged into the asteroid field, the pursuing Vork's warships opened fire. Energy blasts lit up the void around them, narrowly missing their ship as Roger expertly maneuvered through the rocky maze. "Zix," Roger called out, "I need you on the engineering systems. Our shields took a hit during takeoff." The young Vork scientist hurried to the engineering station, her scales pale with fear, but her eyes sharp with drive. She quickly familiarized herself with the Kytion technology, rerouting power to strengthen their failing shields. Roger's hands danced across the controls, guiding the ship through impossibly narrow gaps between asteroids. His human reflexes, honed by years of covert operations, gave him an edge over their less agile pursuers. A massive collision ahead of them sent fragments hurtling in all directions. Roger's mind raced, formulating a plan. "Juno, can you target those larger asteroids?" he asked, gesturing to a cluster of rocks ahead. The princess nodded, her fingers finding the weapon's controls. With pinpoint accuracy, she fired, triggering a chain reaction that sent a wave of debris towards their pursuers. The gambit worked. 2 Vork ships collided with the newly formed asteroid cluster, erupting into balls of fire that quickly extinguished in the vacuum of space. The remaining pursuers fell back, unable to navigate the treacherous field. A moment of relief washed over the trio, but it was short-lived. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring from every console. The engines failing, Zix cried out, her claws flying over the engineering controls. That last maneuver was too much for it. Roger gritted his teeth, fighting to maintain control as the ship began to drift. "We need options fast." Zix's eyes darted across the sensor readings. "There," she exclaimed, "a planetoid, not far from our position. Its atmosphere. It's breathable. Can we make it? Juno asked, her ears flattened against her head in concern. Roger checked the navigation system, calculating their trajectory. It'll be close, but it's our only shot. Brace for a rough landing. As they approached the planetoid, the ship's hull began to glow from the friction of atmospheric entry. Roger struggled with the controls, using every trick he knew to slow their descent. Juno took charge of the ship's remaining systems, routing emergency power to the vital functions. Her voice remained calm as she called out altitude readings, a testament to her royal upbringing. The ground rushed up to meet them, a barren landscape of rocks and crystalline formations. With a final, desperate maneuver, Roger managed to level their approach, bringing them down in a skidding, bone-jarring landing that left a deep furrow in the alien soil. As the dust settled, the three unlikely allies found themselves alive, but stranded on an unknown world. Roger unbuckled his harness, checking on his companions. "Everyone okay?" Juno nodded, already assessing their situation with a regal poise. Zix gave a shaky affirmative, her scientific curiosity already piqued by their alien surroundings. They emerged from the battered ship, squinting in the harsh light of twin suns. The air was thin but breathable, just as Zix had predicted. Strange, glittering formations dotted the horizon, reflecting the sunlight in dazzling arrays. "We need to salvage what we can from the ship," Roger said, taking charge. "Supplies, equipment, anything that might help us survive until rescue comes." As they began their salvage operation, Roger couldn't help but feel a mix of dread and excitement. They were alive, against impossible odds, but their journey was just the beginning. Unknown to them, forces were already in motion across the galaxy, set to converge on this desolate planetoid. In the distance, as the first of the twin suns began to set, a faint flicker of light caught Roger's attention. He paused in his work, staring at the horizon with a furrowed brow. Something about that light seemed unnatural, but with the more immediate concerns of survival pressing upon them, he filed the observation away for later investigation. As night fell, bringing with it a bone-chilling cold, the trio huddled in their hastily constructed shelter. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, they had survived. And in this harsh, alien world, that was no small victory. Victory! As night fell, bringing with it a bone-chilling cold, the trio huddled in their hastily constructed shelter. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, they had survived. And in this harsh, alien world, that was no small achievement. The twin suns rose, casting an eerie glow across the barren landscape. Roger emerged from the shelter, squinting against the harsh light. His eyes swept the horizon, searching for any sign of pursuit or rescue. Finding none, he turned to his companions. "Time to move," he said, his voice rough from the dry air. "We need to scout the area, find water, and anything else that might help us survive." Juno nodded, her royal bearing evident even in their dire circumstances. "Agreed. We should also salvage what we can from the ship before venturing too far." Zix emerged last, her scales shimmering in the early morning light. "I've managed to repair some of our scanning equipment. It should help us identify any potential resources." They set out across the rocky terrain, Roger taking point with Juno close behind. Zix brought up the rear, her eyes darting between the handheld scanner and their surroundings. The landscape was a monotonous expanse of rock and dust, broken only by the occasional crystalline formation jutting from the ground. As they crested a small rise, Roger froze. "Wait," he whispered, holding up a hand. "Do you hear that?" A faint, rhythmic hum filled the air, barely audible but impossible to ignore once noticed. Juno's ears twitched, turning towards the sound. "It's coming from those crystals," she said, pointing to a cluster of formations ahead. They approached cautiously, the hum growing louder with each step. The crystals pulsed with an inner light, their surfaces etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Roger reached out, his curiosity overcoming his caution. As his fingers brushed the crystal surface, the hum intensified, resonating through his body. "It's singing," he murmured, awe evident in his voice. Zix pushed forward, her scientific mind racing. She pulled out the scanner, adjusting its settings as she circled the crystal formation. "These aren't natural," she announced, her voice tinged with excitement. "They're artificial constructs, part of some kind of network." "A communication system?" Juno asked, her tail swishing with interest. Zix nodded, her claws flying over the scanner's interface. "It appears so, and it's old, far older than any technology I've ever encountered." Roger stepped back, his mind racing with the implications. An ancient civilization? Here. Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them shifted. Roger stumbled, his foot catching on a hidden pressure plate. With a grinding sound, a large, flat rock slid aside, revealing a dark opening beneath. "Well," Roger said, peering into the darkness, "I guess we found our next objective." They descended cautiously into the underground complex, using salvage lights from their ship to illuminate the way. The air grew cooler as they ventured deeper, the walls smooth and unmarked by time. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber filled with dormant machinery. Consoles lined the walls, their surfaces covered in unfamiliar symbols. In the center stood a massive pillar, pulsing with the same energy as the crystals above. "This is incredible," Zix breathed, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. She approached one of the consoles, running her claws gently over its surface. "The technology here. It's beyond anything in our databases." Roger moved to join her, his mind already working on how to activate the ancient systems. "Maybe we can use this to call for help," he mused. He pulled a power cell from their salvaged equipment, examining the console for any compatible connections. "Wait," Juno cautioned, but it was too late. Roger had already connected the power cell. The chamber hummed to life. Lights flickered on, casting shadows across the alien machinery. Holographic displays sprang into existence, filling the air with swirling symbols and diagrams. "What have you done?" Juno hissed, her fur standing on end. Roger grinned, despite the potential danger. "Bought us a chance," he replied. "Zix, can you make sense of any of this?" The Vorik scientist was already immersed in the displays, her eyes darting from one projection to another. "It will take time," she said, "but I believe I can decipher some of it. This language, it's like nothing I've ever seen, yet there are patterns, consistencies." As Zix worked on decoding the alien language, Juno took charge of their immediate situation. "We need to establish a base camp here," she declared, her royal training evident in her tone. "Roger, let's scout the nearby chambers. We need to know the extent of this facility and secure our position." Roger nodded, grateful for the princess's leadership. They moved deeper into the complex, discovering chamber after chamber of mysterious technology. In one vast room, they found what appeared to be a hangar filled with sleek, otherworldly vessels. "By the cosmic winds," Juno whispered, her eyes wide. "These ships, they could be our way out of here." Roger approached one of the vessels, his hand hovering over its smooth surface. "If we can figure out how to operate them," he said, his voice filled with both hope and caution. As they explored, unbeknownst to them, their actions had set greater forces in motion. High above the planetoid, in the cold vacuum of space, the signal from the activated complex raced outward, catching the attention of friend and foe alike. On the bridge of his battlecruiser, General Scar's eyes narrowed as his sensors detected the anomalous signal. "Plot a course," he growled to his navigation officer. It seems our quarry has found something interesting. Across the galaxy, in the opulent chambers of the Kytion Royal Palace, King Lyron received urgent news from his deep space monitoring station. Hope flared in his heart as he ordered his fastest ships to investigate the signal's source. And on Earth, in the control room of the fledgling Space Defense Network, technicians scrambled to analyze the strange transmission. Orders were quickly given, and a sleek scout ship prepared for launch, its mission to investigate the source of the mysterious signal. Back in the underground complex, Roger, Juno, and Zix remained oblivious to the forces now converging on their position. They focused on their immediate survival and the tantalizing possibilities presented by their discovery. Zix's voice echoed through the chamber, breaking the tense silence. "I've made a breakthrough," she announced, her scales rippling with excitement. "This facility, this technology, it belongs to a race known as the Precursors." Roger and Juno exchanged glances, the weight of the revelation settling over them. "The Precursors?" Juno asked, her voice hushed with awe. Before Zix could elaborate, the air shimmered around them. Holographic projections materialized, displaying a message in multiple languages, including their own. The ancient AI system had fully activated, and its message was clear. A great trial awaited them, a test to determine if they were worthy of the Precursor's legacy. Roger's hand instinctively moved to his weapon, while Juno's posture stiffened, her royal training kicking in as she prepared to face this new challenge. Zix's eyes darted between the holograms and her companions, her scientific mind racing to process the implications of their discovery. As the message faded, leaving them in stunned silence, they faced a critical decision. Would they accept the AI's challenge and risk everything for the chance to claim the Precursor's advanced technology? Or would they attempt an immediate escape using one of the alien ships, potentially drawing the ire of the complex's guardian intelligence? The choice before them was monumental, with consequences that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. And all the while, multiple forces raced towards their location, each with their own agenda regarding the fugitives and the newly discovered alien technology. Roger took a deep breath, his mind racing through their options. "We need to make a decision," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "And we need to make it fast." Fast. The AI's message hung in the air, a challenge and an opportunity intertwined. Roger looked at his companions, seeing the same mix of apprehension and willpower in their eyes. He took a deep breath and made the decision that would shape their fate. "We accept the challenge," he declared, his voice echoing in the cavernous chamber. The AI responded immediately, the air shimmering as a holographic maze materialized around them. Walls of light sprung up, constantly shifting and rearranging themselves. Simulated hazards appeared at random intervals. Pits of swirling energy, beams of searing light, and floating obstacles that pulsed with an otherworldly glow. "Stay close," Roger instructed, his eyes darting around, assessing the ever-changing landscape. He took point, relying on his quick reflexes to navigate the treacherous path. Juno's ears twitched, her feline senses attuned to the subtle patterns in the maze's movements. "Left," she called out, her royal training in spatial awareness proving invaluable. "The pattern repeats every 7th shift." Zix brought up the rear, her scientific mind analyzing the simulated hazards. "The energy signatures are consistent with non-lethal containment fields," she reported. "Painful, but not fatal if we accidentally trigger one." They moved as one, Roger's agility allowing him to duck and weave through narrow openings, while Juno's precise directions kept them on track. Zix's warnings helped them avoid the worst of the environmental dangers. As they neared the end of the maze, a final obstacle presented itself, a chasm too wide to jump, with the exit visible on the other side. Roger scanned the area, noticing a series of floating platforms that appeared and disappeared at regular intervals. "We'll have to time this perfectly," he said, gauging the rhythm of the platforms. "On my mark. Now." They leapt in unison, their feet barely touching each platform before it vanished. With a final, desperate jump, they cleared the chasm, tumbling through the exit as the maze dissolved behind them. Catching their breath, they found themselves in a new chamber filled with alien machinery. A large, pulsing device dominated the center of the room, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "Our next trial," Zix observed, approaching the device with scientific curiosity. "It appears to be malfunctioning." Roger examined the alien technology, his mind racing to find familiar elements in its unfamiliar design. "These components," he mused, "they're not too different from the power couplings on our ship. If we reroute the energy flow..." He began to work, using salvage tools from their crashed vessel in ways their original designers never intended. Juno assisted, her delicate touch perfect for manipulating the device's more fragile components. Zix provided constant feedback, her scanner analyzing the energy fluctuations as they worked. With a final adjustment, the device hummed to life, its pulsing pattern stabilizing into a steady glow. The chamber walls parted, revealing a new passageway. As they entered the next area, the air shimmered once more. This time, a holographic scenario unfolded before them, a city under attack, with two distinct groups of individuals in peril. One group, larger in number, cowered in a public square. The other, smaller but adorned in official-looking attire, was trapped in a nearby building. A moral dilemma, Juno realized, her tail twitching with agitation. We can only save one group. Roger's brow furrowed as he assessed the situation. The officials could have vital knowledge, resources that could help more people in the long run. But the immediate loss of life in the square would be devastating, Zix countered. The psychological impact on survivors would be incalculable. They debated, each bringing their unique perspective to bear. Roger's diplomatic skills came to the fore as he listened to both sides, searching for a solution that would satisfy the AI's criteria without compromising their principles. "What if," he proposed, "we focus on evacuating the square, but use the officials' resources and knowledge to create a more efficient escape route? We're not choosing one over the other. We're combining their strengths." The holographic scenario responded to their decision, showing the combined groups working together to lead even more citizens to safety. The AI's approval manifested as a soft chime, and the room transformed once more. They found themselves back in the central chamber, but it had changed. The walls now displayed vast streams of data, and a pedestal rose from the floor, holding what appeared to be a highly advanced portable device. "We did it," Zix breathed, her claws reaching for the device. The precursor database. Before she could grasp it, alarms blared throughout the complex. The AI's voice echoed around them. "Warning. Multiple hostile forces detected in orbit and on the surface. Automated defense systems activated." Roger's mind raced, quickly formulating a plan. "Zix, download as much of that database as you can. Juno with me. We need to prep one of those ships we saw earlier." They sprang into action, Zix interfacing the portable device with the precursor systems, while Roger and Juno sprinted back to the hangar. The sleek alien vessel responded to their touch, systems powering up as if awakening from a long slumber. The sounds of battle reached them even through the thick walls of the complex. Explosions rocked the surface above, and the distant whine of energy weapons pierced the air. "Download complete," Zix announced, joining them in the ship. "But we have multiple incoming signals. It appears we're about to fly into the middle of a space battle." Roger took the controls, marveling at how naturally they responded to his thoughts. "Well," he said, a grim smile on his face, "let's hope this precursor tech is as advanced as we think it is." The hangar doors began to open, revealing a sky lit by weapons fire. Roger engaged the ship's engines, feeling the raw power thrumming through the vessel. As they shot towards the surface, leaving the underground complex behind. He knew that their trials were just getting started. The real test, navigating the political and military minefield that awaited them in orbit, was just beginning. The precursor ship streaked upward, its powerful shields easily deflecting stray weapons fire from the confused forces above. Roger, Juno, and Zix braced themselves, knowing that their next moves would shape not only their own fates, but potentially the future of their entire galaxy. The precursor ship streaked upward, its sleek form cutting through the planetoid's atmosphere with ease. Roger's hands hovered over the control panel, but he quickly realized they were unnecessary. The ship responded directly to his thoughts, its systems interpreting his intentions with uncanny precision. "This is incredible," he breathed, as the vessel effortlessly adjusted its course to avoid a pocket of turbulence. Juno and Zix monitored the ship's systems from their positions, their eyes wide with wonder. Holographic displays flickered to life around them, providing real-time data on their ascent. "The energy output is off the charts," Zix reported, her claws dancing over the alien interface. "And yet, it's barely tapping into its power reserves." As they broke through the upper atmosphere, the darkness of space enveloped them. But the tranquility was short-lived. The ship's sensors immediately detected the chaos unfolding above. "We've got company," Juno announced, her ears flattening against her head. "Lots of it." The void before them was illuminated by crisscrossing beams of energy weapons. Kytion and Vorik ships engaged in a furious battle, their hulls glinting in the light of distant stars. Stray shots ricocheted off the precursor ship's shields, the impacts barely registering as ripples across its surface. Roger's mind raced, assessing their options. The ship's superior technology gave them an advantage, but they were still grossly outnumbered. As if reading his thoughts, a new set of controls materialized before him. "Cloaking systems," he realized aloud. Without hesitation, he activated the technology. The effect was immediate. The sleek form of their vessel shimmered and vanished, becoming invisible not only to the naked eye but to the sensors of the warring fleets as well. Outside, Admiral Mirix's voice crackled over the Kytion fleet's communication channels. "Cease fire. That ship, it's not one of ours or the Vorik's. Attempt to establish contact." But his orders came too late. The precursor ship had already disappeared from their sensors, leaving both factions in a state of confusion. Aboard his battlecruiser, General Scar snarled in frustration. "Find that ship," he roared at his crew. "I want Princess Juno and that technology, whatever it takes." Roger, oblivious to the turmoil they'd left in their wake, plotted a course away from the battle. The ship's navigation system highlighted a nearby neutral space station, offering a temporary haven. As they traveled, Zix immersed herself in the data they downloaded from the precursor database. Her eyes widened as she processed the information. "This is astounding," she said, her voice filled with awe. The precursors left behind a network of outposts throughout the galaxy. Each one contains pieces of their advanced technology. Juno leaned in, studying the data. If this information fell into the wrong hands, it could shift the balance of power in the galaxy, Roger finished grimly. They exchanged looks, the weight of their discovery settling upon them. What had started as a desperate escape had now become something far more significant. As they approached the space station, Roger deactivated the cloaking system. The massive structure loomed before them, a hive of activity with ships of various designs docking and departing. "We'll need to keep a low profile," Roger advised as he maneuvered their ship towards an available docking port. "At least until we can figure out our next move." The precursor ship settled into the docking bay with barely a sound, its advanced systems making the normally complex procedures seem effortless. As the airlock cycled, Roger, Juno, and Zix prepared to disembark. "Remember," Juno whispered, her royal training kicking in, "we're just another group of travelers passing through. Nothing remarkable about us at all." They stepped out onto the station's main concourse, immediately enveloped by the bustle of 1,000 different species going about their business. Merchants hawked their wares from colorful stalls, while holographic advertisements flickered overhead. Unbeknownst to them, a hooded figure watched their arrival from the shadows of a nearby alleyway. Zarlath, the rogue Vork scientist, felt his heart race as he observed the trio and their remarkable ship. After years of searching, he'd finally found a lead on the precursor's technology. As Roger secured them temporary lodging in one of the station's many hostels, Zarlath's mind whirled with possibilities. He'd need to approach them carefully, to convince them of his sincerity and the value of his knowledge. In their rented room, Roger, Juno, and Zix gathered around a small table, speaking in hushed tones. "We need a plan," Roger said, running a hand through his hair. "We can't stay here long, but we also can't rush off blindly." Juno nodded in agreement. "The information Zix uncovered about those outposts, we can't let it fall into the wrong hands. We have a responsibility now." Zix's scales rippled with excitement and apprehension. The scientific value alone is staggering, but the potential for misuse. As they debated their options, the galaxy around them was already reacting to their discovery. On countless worlds, in the chambers of the Galactic Council, and in the shadowy meeting places of mercenaries and opportunists, plans were being set in motion. The race for the precursor legacy had begun, and Roger, Juno, and Zix found themselves at the center of it all, unaware of the far-reaching consequences their actions had set in motion. The race for the precursor legacy had begun, and Roger, Juno, and Zix found themselves at the center of it all, unaware of the far-reaching consequences their actions had set in motion. Their hushed discussion was suddenly interrupted by a soft chime emanating from Roger's pocket. He pulled out a small device linked to the precursor ship systems, his eyes widening as he read the alert flashing across its screen. "We've got an incoming transmission," he said, his voice low and urgent. "It's on an encrypted frequency I've never seen before." Juno's fur bristled with apprehension. Could it be a trap? Zix's scales rippled as she considered the possibilities. The encryption is far too advanced for any known faction. It must be related to the precursor technology. Roger took a deep breath, his diplomatic instincts kicking in. "We need to know more. I say we accept the transmission, but cautiously." With a nod from his companions, Roger activated the device. A shimmering hologram materialized in the center of their small room, coalescing into the form of a Vork's male. Unlike the brutish soldiers they had encountered before, this individual had an air of intellect about him, his eyes sharp and calculating. "Greetings," the hologram said, its voice low and gravelly. "I am Zarlath, a scientist who has long studied the legends of the precursors. I come to you as an ally, not an enemy." Roger's eyes narrowed. "How did you find us? And why should we trust you?" Zarlath's image flickered slightly as he let out a soft chuckle. "Your ship's energy signature is unique, impossible to miss for one who knows what to look for. As for trust, I offer you this. I am a defector from General Scar's command. I've seen firsthand the destruction he would wreak with precursor technology." Juno stepped forward, her royal bearing evident even in the cramped confines of their hideout. "You claim to have knowledge of the precursors. Prove it." The holographic Vorix nodded, launching into a detailed explanation of precursor artifacts and outposts scattered throughout the galaxy. His knowledge was impressive, matching and even expanding upon the information they had gleaned from the database. As Zarlath spoke, Roger exchanged glances with Juno and Zix. The potential value of this unexpected ally was clear, but so were the risks. "We appreciate the information," Roger said carefully, "but we'll need more than words to trust you. Are you willing to meet in person?" Zarlath's holographic eyes gleamed. "I would expect nothing less. There's a botanical garden on the station's upper level. Meet me there in 1 hour. Come alone, and I'll do the same." As the hologram faded, The trio immediately began preparing for the meeting. They gathered what precursor technology they could conceal and made their way through the station's winding corridors, constantly on alert for any signs of pursuit. The botanical garden was a stark contrast to the sterile metal hallways of the rest of the station. Lush vegetation from 100 worlds filled the massive dome, creating secluded pockets perfect for clandestine meetings. They found Zarlath waiting in a small clearing, surrounded by luminescent flowers that cast a soft, otherworldly glow. The Voric scientist looked even more gaunt in person, his scales dulled by years of stress and secrecy. "I'm glad you came," Zarlath said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We have much to discuss and little time. General Scar has spies everywhere, and he's not the only one hunting for precursor technology." Roger leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you mean?" Zarlath's eyes darted around nervously before he continued. "There's a group known as the Techno Syndicate. They're obsessed with hoarding advanced technology, selling to the highest bidder, or using it to manipulate galactic politics. If they get their hands on precursor tech, the consequences could be catastrophic." As they delved deeper into Zarlath's knowledge, sharing information and theories, a subtle shift in the garden's atmosphere caught Roger's attention. The ambient noise of flowing water and rustling leaves had diminished, replaced by an eerie silence. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. A computerized voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Security alert. Unauthorized individuals detected. All citizens report to designated safe zones." Zix's scales flashed with alarm. "They've found us." Roger's mind raced, assessing their options. "We need to get back to the ship. Zarlath, you're coming with us. Your knowledge is too valuable to leave behind." As they sprinted through the garden, the sound of heavy footsteps and energy weapons charging filled the air. A group of heavily armed mercenaries burst into view, their eyes scanning the foliage for their targets. "There they are," one of the mercenaries shouted, raising his weapon. Roger reacted instinctively, grabbing a small precursor device from his pocket. He activated it, creating a shimmering energy barrier that deflected the incoming fire. "This way," Juno called out, her feline agility allowing her to spot a maintenance hatch hidden behind a cluster of vibrant ferns. They dove through the hatch, finding themselves in a narrow service tunnel. As they ran, the sounds of pursuit grew louder, echoing off the metal walls. "We're cut off from the main docking bay," Zix panted, her claws clicking against the floor as she ran. Zarlath spoke up, his voice strained from the exertion. "There's an auxiliary airlock 2 levels down. If we can reach it, we might be able to use your ship's advanced systems to dock remotely." Roger nodded, leading the group down a series of ladders and winding passages. They emerged into a wider corridor, only to find themselves face to face with a team of human scouts led by a familiar figure. "Captain Phillips," Roger said, recognizing the determined woman from their previous encounter on Earth. Before anyone could speak, another voice rang out from behind them. "Princess Juno, thank the stars we found you." Commander Cragg and his team of Kytion operatives had entered from the opposite end of the corridor, effectively trapping Roger's group in the middle. The tension in the air was palpable as weapons were raised on all sides. Roger knew that one wrong move could spark a firefight that none of them might survive. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Everyone, please, lower your weapons. We don't have to be enemies here." Captain Phillips's eyes narrowed. "You have technology that could change the course of human history. We can't just let you leave." Commander Cragg growled in agreement. "And the princess must return to her people. The fate of our world hangs in the balance." Roger's mind raced, searching for a solution that would satisfy everyone without compromising their mission. In that moment, he made a bold decision. "Listen to me, all of you," he said, his voice ringing with conviction. What we've discovered goes beyond any one species or faction. The precursor legacy is vast, powerful, and potentially dangerous. If we don't work together, we risk it falling into the wrong hands. He activated the precursor device he had used earlier, projecting a holographic display of the galaxy. Points of light indicated the locations of precursor outposts, spreading out in a complex network. This is what we're dealing with, Roger continued. A galaxy-wide puzzle with pieces scattered across countless worlds. No single group can hope to solve it alone. The others stared at the display, the magnitude of the situation slowly sinking in. Captain Phillips lowered her weapon first, followed reluctantly by Commander Cragg. "What are you proposing?" Phillips asked, her curiosity overcoming her suspicion. Roger smiled, feeling a glimmer of hope. "An alliance. We pool our resources, our knowledge, and our skills. Together, we stand a chance of uncovering the full extent of the precursor technology and using it responsibly." As the groups warily lowered their weapons, the distant sound of approaching mercenaries reminded them of the immediate danger. "We need to move," Juno urged, her ears twitching at the sound of heavy footsteps. Roger nodded, turning to the others. "Are you with us?" After a moment of tense silence, both Captain Phillips and Commander Cragg gave curt nods of agreement. "To the airlock," Roger commanded, leading the now expanded group through the station's maze-like corridors. They reached the auxiliary airlock just as the first mercenaries rounded the corner behind them. Roger quickly interfaced with the precursor ship systems, initiating a remote docking sequence. As energy blasts scorched the walls around them, the airlock cycled open, revealing the sleek form of the precursor vessel. They piled in, the ship's advanced defenses easily repelling the mercenaries' attacks. Roger took the controls, guiding the ship away from the station with a burst of speed that left their pursuers far behind. As the stars streaked by outside the view screen, he turned to face the diverse crew that now filled the ship's bridge. "I hope you're all ready for an adventure," he said, setting a course for the first precursor outpost. "Because I have a feeling this is just the beginning." The ship accelerated into the depths of space, carrying with it a fragile alliance and the hopes of multiple civilizations. As Roger navigated through the stars, he couldn't help but wonder what challenges awaited them at their destination, and whether this unlikely team could hold together long enough to face them. Them at their destination, and whether this unlikely team could hold together long enough to face the trials ahead. As the precursor ship glided through the vast expanse of space, Roger turned his attention to the diverse group gathered on the bridge. The tension was palpable, with wary glances exchanged between former adversaries now forced into an uneasy alliance. "We need to establish some order here," Roger said, his voice calm but authoritative. "If we're going to succeed in this mission, we need to work together." He quickly assigned roles based on each crew member's expertise. Captain Phillips, with her tactical knowledge, was put in charge of ship defense systems. Commander Cragg's military experience made him the ideal security officer. Zix's scientific background complemented Zarlatha's precursor knowledge, so Roger paired them to analyze the ship's database. Princess Juno, initially dripping at the idea of taking orders, found herself appointed as communications officer due to her diplomatic training. Her fur rippled with almost unchecked frustration, but she took her place at the console without complaint. As the ship's advanced navigation system plotted a course to the coordinates provided by Zarlath, Roger observed the crew settling into their roles. The initial awkwardness began to fade as they focused on their tasks. Hours into the journey, Zix's scales flashed with excitement as she called out, "Roger, Captain Phillips, you need to see this." The two hurried over to the science station where Zix and Zarlath had been poring over the data from the original precursor complex. On the screen, a complex series of symbols and diagrams pulsed with an otherworldly light. "We've decrypted a segment of the database," Zarlath explained, his eyes wide with wonder. It speaks of an artifact called the Nexus Key. From what we can gather, it's capable of activating dormant precursor technology across the entire galaxy. Captain Phillips leaned in, her brow furrowed. That kind of power could shift the balance of the entire known universe. No wonder everyone's after this tech. Roger nodded grimly. All the more reason we need to find it first. As they approached the coordinates of the first outpost, the ship's sensors began to ping wildly. The view screen filled with a sea of tumbling rocks and debris. Asteroid field dead ahead. Juno reported from her station. It's surrounding a small planet. The outpost must be there. Roger took manual control of the ship, his hands dancing over the controls. The precursor vessel responded with incredible precision, weaving through gaps barely wider than its hull. The crew held their breath as they watched Roger navigate the treacherous field, the ship's superior technology allowing maneuvers that would have been impossible in any other vessel. Finally, they broke through the asteroid field and entered the planet's atmosphere. The barren, rocky surface rushed up to meet them as Roger set the ship down near a formation that looked suspiciously artificial. "Suits on, everyone," Roger ordered as they prepared to disembark. "We don't know what kind of environment we're walking into." The group made their way across the desolate landscape, following Roger's lead. It didn't take long to locate the entrance to an underground facility, its architecture eerily similar to the one they had encountered before. As they entered the facility, Roger activated a precursor device that illuminated their path. The corridors were a maze of twisting passages and sealed doors, each presenting a new challenge. "This one's got me stumped," Roger admitted, staring at a wall covered in shifting symbols. "Zarlath, any ideas?" The Vorik scientist studied the patterns intently. "It's a logic puzzle based on precursor numerology. If I'm not mistaken," he input a series of commands into a nearby console, and the wall slid open with a hiss. They pressed on, encountering more obstacles. Commander Craig's combat experience proved invaluable in disarming a series of energy traps, while Captain Phillips' quick thinking helped them navigate a room with a rapidly shifting gravitational field. As they progressed deeper into the facility, dormant systems began to hum to life around them. Lights flickered on, and distant machinery groaned into motion. "We're activating something," Zix observed, her scales rippling with unease. "These systems, they're sending out signals." Roger's expression tightened. "Let's hope we're the only ones who can detect them." Finally, they reached a vast central chamber. In the center stood a raised platform with a gleaming pedestal. Atop it sat a strange, crystalline object that pulsed with an inner light. "That must be the Nexus Key fragment," Roger breathed, stepping towards it. As his hand closed around the artifact, a high-pitched whine filled the air. Panels in the walls slid open, releasing a swarm of hovering drones, their weapons primed and humming with energy. "Everybody down!" Commander Craig shouted, drawing his weapon and firing at the nearest drone. It exploded in a shower of sparks, but more quickly took its place. "We need to get out of here," Captain Phillips yelled over the chaos, providing covering fire as the group began to retreat. They fought their way back through the facility, Roger clutching the Nexus Key fragment tightly. The drones pursued relentlessly, their energy weapons scorching the walls around them. In the confusion, Roger lost sight of Princess Juno. His heart raced as he realized she was no longer with the group. "I have to go back for her," he said, turning to face the oncoming swarm. "Are you insane?" Captain Phillips shouted. "We'll be overrun." But Roger was already sprinting back into the fray, dodging energy blasts and leaping over fallen debris. He found Juno cornered in a side chamber, her own weapon nearly depleted as she held off a group of drones. Thinking quickly, Roger activated the ship's remote interface. With a series of mental commands, He directed the precursor vessel to emit a powerful electromagnetic pulse. The drones surrounding Juno suddenly dropped to the ground, their system scrambled. "Come on," Roger called, grabbing Juno's hand and pulling her towards the exit. They rejoined the others just as they reached the surface, all of them gasping for breath in the thin atmosphere. But their relief was short-lived. As they approached their ship, a fleet of sleek, dark vessels descended from the sky, surrounding them in a tight formation. A booming voice echoed across the barren landscape. "This is the Techno Syndicate. Surrender all precursor technology immediately or be destroyed." Roger's mind raced, searching for a way out. He looked down at the Nexus key fragment in his hand, an idea forming. "Everyone, get to the ship," he ordered. "I have a plan, but it's going to be a bumpy ride." As they sprinted up the boarding ramp, energy blasts from the Syndicate ships peppered the ground around them. Roger rushed to the control console, interfacing the Nexus key fragment with the ship systems. The vessel hummed with newfound power, its engines flaring to life with blinding intensity. Roger pushed the controls forward, and the ship shot into the sky like a rocket, effortlessly breaking through the Syndicate's blockade. As they entered hyperspace, a violent shudder ran through the ship. Warning lights flashed across the console. "The power boost overloaded our propulsion system," Zix reported, her claws flying over the diagnostic screens. "We're going to have to drop out of hyperspace for repairs." The ship lurched back into normal space, drifting in an unknown sector of the galaxy. As the crew scrambled to assess the damage and begin repairs, a ping from the long-range sensors caught their attention. On the console, a massive structure began to take shape. It was a space station of incredible size and unfamiliar design, slowly but steadily approaching their position. Roger stared at the looming station, a mix of curiosity and apprehension washing over him. With their ship damaged and the Nexus key fragment in their possession, he knew the decisions he made in the next few moments could change the course of the entire mission. He turned to face his crew, each of them looking to him for guidance. The hope of the universe might well rest on what they did next, and Roger knew that every choice from here on out would be crucial. Critical, the future of the cosmos might well rest on what they did next, and Roger knew that every choice from here on out would be crucial. "Everyone listen up," Roger said, his voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. "We need to get this ship operational and figure out what we're dealing with. Captain Phillips, you and Zix focus on repairing the propulsion system. Commander Cragg, I want you and Zarlath to get our defensive systems back online. Juno, you're with me on sensors. Let's move." The crew sprang into action, each member hurrying to their assigned tasks. Roger and Princess Juno huddled over the sensor array, studying the massive structure that loomed ever closer. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen," Juno murmured, her fur rippling with a mix of awe and apprehension. As they watched, intricate patterns on the station's surface began to pulse with a soft, blue light. Suddenly, the ship's communication system crackled to life, broadcasting a message in multiple languages. "Attention, approaching vessel. This is Nexus Hub Alpha, Central Command Post of the Precursor Civilization. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." Roger's eyes widened. Precursors? But they've been gone for millennia. He quickly activated the ship's communication array. "This is Roger, captain of the precursor vessel currently in your vicinity. We've sustained damage and are in need of assistance. We come in peace and seek to learn more about your civilization." There was a moment of tense silence before the station responded. A shimmering energy tendril extended from the structure, enveloping their ship in a translucent field. "What's happening?" Cragg shouted from his station, reaching for his weapon. "Hold your fire," Roger commanded. "I think they're helping us." The energy field gently pulled their ship towards a massive docking port. As they drew closer, Roger could see the intricate details of the station's architecture. a blend of organic curves and geometric precision that spoke of advanced technology beyond their comprehension. "We're being drawn in," Juno reported, her claws dancing over the controls. "Gravity and atmosphere readings are stabilizing." The ship passed through an energy barrier and entered a cavernous docking bay. As the crew prepared to disembark, Roger addressed them one last time. "We don't know what we're walking into, so stay alert. But remember, we're here to learn and potentially forge an alliance. Let's put our best foot forward." As they stepped off the ship, a holographic figure materialized before them. It was tall and ethereal, its form shifting slightly as if made of light and mist. When it spoke, its voice resonated with an otherworldly timbre. "Welcome, inheritors. I am the AI custodian of Nexus Hub Alpha. We have awaited your arrival for countless cycles." Roger stepped forward, the Nexus key fragment clutched in his hand. "We found this artifact. Can you tell us more about it?" The AI's form shimmered as it focused on the fragment. "You hold a piece of the Nexus key, one of several scattered across the galaxy. United, they will activate the full potential of the precursor network, granting access to technology beyond your current understanding." Before Roger could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The AI's expression shifted, its light dimming slightly. "Multiple vessels have entered the system. Scans indicate hostile intent." Captain Phillips' voice crackled over the comms. "Roger, we've got incoming. The sensors are lighting up like a Zephyrian fireworks display." The AI confirmed. "The approaching fleet consists of techno-syndicate vessels, forces loyal to General Scar, and ships from various galactic powers. They demand the surrender of this station and all precursor technology." Roger's mind raced. They were vastly outnumbered, their ship damaged, and now they stood at the center of a potential galactic conflict. He turned to the AI. "Can you help us repair our ship? And does this station have any defenses?" The AI nodded, its form pulsing brightly. "Affirmative. Repair drones are being dispatched to your vessel. Defense systems are now online." Outside, a massive energy shield sprang to life, encompassing both the station and their docked ship. Roger watched as swarms of sleek, silvery drones descended upon their vessel, beginning repairs with incredible speed and precision. "We need a plan," Roger said, turning to his crew. "We can't fight our way out of this, but maybe we can change the game entirely." Princess Juno stepped forward, her eyes bright with tenacity. "What if we told everyone, broadcast a message to the entire galaxy about the precursor legacy?" Roger nodded, a plan forming in his mind. "We could call for unity, for a joint effort to recover and share this technology for the benefit of all species." As Roger and Juno began crafting their message, Captain Phillips and Zix burst into the room, their faces flushed with excitement. "Roger, you won't believe what we found in the station's database," Zix said, her scales shimmering with enthusiasm. "There's information about a hidden precursor shipyard, the vessels it can produce. They're beyond anything we've ever seen." The implications were staggering. Such a shipyard could shift the balance of power in the galaxy overnight. Their mission had just become even more critical. Commander Craig's gruff voice cut through the excitement. "Hate to break up the party, but we've got incoming. First wave of techno-syndicate fighters is testing the shields." The station shuddered slightly as energy weapons impacted the barrier. The AI's form flickered momentarily. "The shields will hold for now, but sustained assault from the entire fleet will eventually breach our defenses." Zarlath, who had been quietly analyzing data on a nearby console, suddenly spoke up. "I may have found something. There's a precursor defense system capable of neutralizing entire fleets without loss of life. But it requires specific commands from a user genetically recognized as an authorized precursor heir." All eyes turned to Roger, still holding the Nexus key fragment. The weight of the decision pressed down on him. Should they focus on broadcasting their message, hoping to prevent further conflict? Or should they search for a way to activate the defense system before the shields failed? Outside, more ships joined the assault, their weapons flaring against the shimmering barrier. Time was running out, and the fate of not just their small crew, but potentially the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Roger took a deep breath, knowing his next decision could change everything. Roger's mind raced as he weighed his options. The fate of humanity and all alien species hung in the balance, and he knew he couldn't afford to make the wrong choice. Suddenly, an idea crystallized in his mind. "We're going to do both," he announced, his voice firm with dedication. "We'll split into 2 teams. Juno, Captain Phillips, you're on message duty. Craft a broadcast that will reach every corner of the galaxy. Emphasize cooperation and the potential benefits of sharing this technology." Juno nodded, her fur rippling with willpower. "We'll make it count, Roger. The rest of you're with me," Roger continued. "We're going to find a way to activate that defense system." As the 2 groups separated, Roger led his team deeper into the labyrinthine structure of Nexus Hub Alpha. The station hummed with ancient power, its corridors lined with pulsing blue light that seemed to respond to their presence. "This place is incredible," Zix marveled, her scales shimmering as she ran a claw along a nearby wall. "The level of technology here. It's beyond anything I've ever seen," Commander Cragg grunted, his eyes darting warily from side to side. "Just keep your guard up. We don't know what kind of security systems the precursors might have left behind." As if on cue, a holographic interface sprang to life before them, its glowing form blocking their path. Symbols and patterns danced across its surface, forming a complex puzzle. "A test," Zarlath observed, his many eyes blinking in rapid succession as he studied the display. "The precursors are evaluating our worthiness." Roger stepped forward, the Nexus key fragment pulsing warmly in his hand. As he approached the hologram, the symbols began to shift and realign. With a flash of intuition, he understood the pattern and quickly manipulated the holographic controls. The barrier dissolved, revealing a vast chamber beyond. As they entered, Roger's breath caught in his throat. The room was filled with dozens of stasis pods, their sleek forms arranged in concentric circles. "Are they all?" Zix began, her voice hushed with awe. "Empty," Cragg finished, peering into the nearest pod. "Or damaged. Except," in the center of the room, a single pod glowed with a soft, pulsing light. Roger approached it cautiously, wiping away a layer of condensation from its surface. Inside, he could make out the form of a humanoid figure. "It's still active," he breathed. "There's someone inside." The decision to awaken the pod's occupant caused great concern on Roger. The risks were enormous, but so were the potential benefits. With a deep breath, he activated the release mechanism. The pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cryogenic vapor. As it cleared, a tall, slender figure sat up, blinking in the sudden light. His skin had a faint, silvery sheen, and his eyes glowed with an inner light that spoke of advanced genetic engineering. "I am Zephyr," the being said, his voice resonant and clear despite millennia of stasis. "Last of the precursor guardians. You have awakened me in a time of great need, it seems." Roger quickly explained their situation, the words tumbling out in a rush. Zephyr listened intently, his expression growing grave. "The defense system you seek," he said, rising gracefully from the pod. "It exists. But its activation is not a simple matter. It requires a specific genetic key, a combination of DNA from multiple species we foresaw rising to prominence in the galaxy." As Zephyr led them to the station's central control chamber, the AI's voice echoed through the corridors. "Shield integrity at 63% and falling. Estimated time to failure 58 minutes. The race against time lent urgency to their steps as they navigated through the station's winding passages. In the control chamber, Zephyr gestured to a console adorned with 3 distinct receptacles. Human, Kytion, and Vorax, he explained. Courage, wisdom, and adaptability. These are the keys to unlocking our legacy. Roger stepped forward without hesitation, placing his hand on one of the receptacles. A brief sting, and a drop of his blood was drawn into the machine. Princess Juno, who had joined them after completing the broadcast, did the same for the Kytion sample. Zix, representing the Vorax, completed the trio. The console hummed to life, energy coursing through its circuits. Zephyr's hands danced over the controls, initiating a complex sequence of commands. Suddenly, the station shuddered violently. Craig's communicator crackled to life. "We've got borders." Captain Phillips' voice rang out, tense with exertion. "They've breached the outer defenses." Craig sprang into action, coordinating with the station's AI to organize a defense. Roger found himself torn between assisting Zephyr and joining the fight. "Go!" Zephyr urged him. "I can complete the activation. Defend the station." Roger nodded, drawing his weapon as he and the others rushed to repel the invaders. The corridors of Nexus Hub Alpha became a battlefield, energy weapons flashing as they clashed with the boarding party. Time seemed to stretch as they fought, pushing back against the tide of Techno-Syndicate mercenaries and Vorax troops. Just as it seemed they might be overwhelmed, a wave of energy pulsed through the station. The invaders' weapons fell silent, their propulsion packs sputtering out. Outside, the massive attacking fleet hung motionless in space, their systems neutralized by the precursor defense grid. In the sudden silence, Roger and his team regrouped, their breath coming in ragged gasps. They had done it. They had activated the defense system and saved the station. But as they looked at each other, the realization dawned that their journey was just getting started. With control of a precursor station, a fragment of the Nexus key, and a living precursor at their side, they now faced a new set of challenges. The galaxy was changing, and they stood at the center of that change. As they made their way back to the control chamber, Roger's mind was already racing with the possibilities and dangers that lay ahead. The next phase of their mission was about to begin, and the stakes had never been higher. The next phase of their mission was about to begin, and the stakes had never been higher. The control chamber buzzed with activity as Roger and his team regrouped. Zephyr's fingers danced across the precursor console, initiating a series of commands that stabilized the defense grid's effects on the neutralized enemy fleet. "The ships are secured," Zephyr announced, his silvery skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "Their systems are completely offline, but life support remains functional." Roger nodded, his mind already racing with the next steps. "Commander Craig, I need you to lead a team to board those vessels. Use the station's security drones for backup. We need to ensure the safety of the prisoners and prevent any attempts at sabotage." Craig grunted in affirmation, his gruff voice tinged with anticipation. "Consider it done. I'll have those ships locked down tighter than a Zephyrian puzzle box." As Craig departed, Roger turned to Captain Phillips. "Work with the AI to create a containment field around the captured fleet. We need controlled access while maintaining security." Phillips nodded, her fingers already flying over a nearby console. "I'm on it. We'll have a barrier up in no time." With the immediate threat managed, Roger faced Zephyr, his curiosity piqued. "Now, I think it's time you told us more about your people and this Nexus key." Zephyr's eyes glowed with an inner light as he began to speak. The Nexus key is more than just a tool to activate dormant technology. When fully assembled, it unlocks a vast repository of knowledge hidden throughout the galaxy. Our civilization's greatest achievements, our most profound discoveries, all waiting to be rediscovered. The implications of Zephyr's words sent a ripple of excitement through the team. Roger's mind raced with possibilities. We need to find the remaining fragments as soon as possible. Zarlath, I want you working with Zephyr. Use the station scanners to search for energy signatures matching our fragment. As the trio set to work, Princess Juno approached Roger, her fur rippling with concern. Roger, we have an unexpected situation. My father, King Lyron, has received our broadcast. He's demanding to speak with me directly. Roger's brow furrowed. The Kytion monarch's involvement added yet another layer of complexity to their already precarious situation. We'll handle this together, Juno. We need to secure his support without compromising our control over the precursor technology. Before they could formulate a plan, alarms blared throughout the station. The AI's voice echoed through the chamber. Alert! Incoming vessel detected. Energy signature matches Earth-based propulsion systems. Captain Phillips confirmed the AI's report. It's a diplomatic shuttle. They're requesting permission to dock. Roger took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. Grant them access. It looks like we'll be hosting Earth's representatives sooner than expected. As the human diplomats made their way to the control chamber, Zix called out from her workstation. Roger, we've got something. The scanners have identified 3 potential locations for additional Nexus key fragments. The news sent a surge of excitement through the team, but it was tempered by the growing complexity of their situation. Roger found himself at a crossroads, faced with a critical decision that would shape the course of their mission and potentially alter the balance of power in the galaxy. Should they immediately pursue the nearest Nexus key fragment, potentially securing another piece of the puzzle before their enemies could regroup? Or should they focus on consolidating their control over Nexus Hub Alpha and the newly discovered Precursor Fleet? As Roger weighed his options, the doors to the control chamber slid open, revealing a small delegation led by a woman with sharp features and an air of authority. She stepped forward, her eyes taking in the diverse group before her. I am Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, representing the interests of Earth, she announced, her voice clear and confident. I believe we have much to discuss. The arrival of the Earth diplomats added yet another variable to the already complex equation. Roger glanced at his team, each member's face a mix of anticipation and concern. He knew that his next decision would set the course for their journey ahead, with consequences that would ripple across the galaxy. Before Roger could respond to the ambassador, Zarlatha's multifaceted eyes widened in alarm. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting an anomaly at the edge of the system. It's massive, unlike anything I've ever seen. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a swirling vortex of energy that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. The unknown phenomenon was moving steadily towards Nexus Hub Alpha, its purpose and origin a complete mystery. Roger's mind raced as he assessed the rapidly evolving situation. The neutralized enemy fleet, the Kytion King's demands, Earth's diplomatic mission, the Nexus key fragments, and now this new cosmic anomaly. Each element demanded immediate attention, and any misstep could have dire consequences. He took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would set in motion events that would shape the future of multiple civilizations. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders as he prepared to address his team, the Earth diplomats, and the challenges that lay ahead. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders as he prepared to address his team, the Earth diplomats, and the challenges that lay before them. Roger's eyes darted between the view screen, displaying the cosmic anomaly and the expectant faces surrounding him. He took a deep breath, his mind racing through the myriad of tasks demanding immediate attention. Ambassador Rodriguez, welcome to Nexus Hub Alpha, he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. I apologize for the chaotic reception, but as you can see, we're facing multiple urgent situations. The ambassador nodded curtly, her sharp gaze taking in the diverse group around her. I understand, Captain. However, Earth's interest in this matter cannot be ignored. Nor will they be, Roger assured her. He turned to address his team. We need to act quickly and decisively. Princess Juno, I need you to stay here with Captain Phillips and Zarlath. Manage our diplomatic relations and continue negotiations with your father, King Lyron. Juno's fur rippled with concern, but she nodded in agreement. I'll do my best to secure Kytion support while maintaining our position. Roger then locked eyes with Commander Cragg, Zix, and Zephyr. You three are with me. We're going after the nearest Nexus key fragment. Time is of the essence. As the team split into their assigned groups, Roger led his away team towards the station's hangar. Zephyr's eyes widened as they approached a sleek, otherworldly vessel. A Starweaver-class scout ship, Zephyr breathed, his hand caressing the smooth hull. I never thought I'd see one intact after all this time. The ship's exterior shimmered, its surface seeming to ripple like water as they approached. Roger placed his hand on the hull, and a hatch materialized, granting them entry. Inside, the cockpit was a marvel of precursor engineering. Instead of traditional controls, there were shimmering holographic interfaces and what appeared to be neural interface nodes. How do we operate this? Commander Cragg asked, his gruff voice tinged with awe. Zephyr stepped forward, placing his hands on two glowing orbs. It responds to a combination of thought commands and physical inputs. Allow me to interface with the ship's systems. As Zephyr connected with the vessel, Roger felt a subtle shift in the air around them. The ship hummed to life, holographic displays blossoming into existence. We're ready for launch, Zephyr announced. I've inputted the coordinates for the nearest Nexus key fragment. Roger nodded, settling into what he assumed was the captain's position. Take us out nice and easy. The Starweaver glided out of the hangar with impossible grace, its movements fluid and silent. As they emerged into open space, the massive energy anomaly came into view, its swirling vortex now resembling a colossal, bioluminescent creature. Fascinating, Zix chittered, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the creature's glow. It appears to be a spacefaring life form, drawn to the energy emissions from the activated precursor technology. Can it detect us? Roger asked, eyeing the creature warily. Zephyr's fingers danced across the holographic controls. Engaging cloaking technology. We should be able to slip past unnoticed. The Starweaver's exterior shimmered, becoming nearly invisible as they maneuvered around the cosmic behemoth. Zix worked furiously at a nearby console, collecting data on the creature's unique biology. As they cleared the creature's vicinity, Roger allowed himself a moment of relief. However, the respite was short-lived. A cluster of ships appeared on their sensors, their design unmistakably belonging to the Techno Syndicate. Scouting party, Commander Cragg growled. They're searching for us. Roger's mind raced through their options. Zephyr, what kind of weaponry does this ship have? Non-lethal energy disruptors, Zephyr replied, capable of disabling enemy vessels without causing permanent damage. Roger nodded, his decision made. Let's take them out of the equation. Target their propulsion and communication systems. The Starweaver decloaked, catching the Syndicate ships off guard. Pulses of energy lanced out, enveloping the enemy vessels in a web of crackling light. Within moments, the Syndicate ships hung motionless in space, their systems completely offline. Well done, Roger said, allowing himself a small smile. Now, let's find that Nexus key fragment before any more uninvited guests show up. As they sped towards their destination, Roger couldn't help but wonder about the situation they'd left behind at Nexus Hub Alpha. He hoped Princess Juno and the others were faring well with the diplomatic crisis they faced. The Starweaver approached a small, barren moon orbiting a massive gas giant. As they began their descent, Commander Cragg pointed out signs of recent activity on the surface. Someone's been here, he said, his eyes narrowing. and they left in a hurry. They landed near the entrance of what appeared to be an underground precursor facility. As they disembarked, Roger felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they were one step closer to unraveling the mysteries of the Nexus Key. With Zephyr leading the way, they entered the ancient structure, unaware of the trials that awaited them within its depths or the forces converging on their position from beyond the stars. Stars. The ancient structure loomed before them, its entrance a dark maw in the rocky surface of the moon. As they cautiously entered the precursor facility, Roger's comm device crackled to life, startling the team. Captain Phillips' voice came through, distorted but urgent. "Roger, we've got a situation. You need to return to Nexus Hub Alpha immediately." Roger frowned, glancing at his team. "What's happening, Captain? That anomaly we detected? It's not just an anomaly. It's a living creature, and it's positioned itself between you and the station. We're calling it a cosmic leviathan." Zephyr's eyes widened. A living creature that size? Fascinating. Roger's mind raced, weighing their options. "We're on our way back. Keep us updated." As they hurried back to the Star Weaver, Commander Cragg growled, "So much for the Nexus Key fragment." "We'll come back for it," Roger assured him. "Right now, we need to deal with this Leviathan." They boarded the precursor vessel, and Zephyr interfaced with its systems once more. The ship hummed to life, lifting off the barren moon's surface with effortless grace. As they approached Nexus Hub Alpha, the cosmic Leviathan came into view. Its massive form pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, creating a living barrier between them and the station. The creature's size dwarfed even the impressive precursor vessel they piloted. "Fascinating," Zix chittered, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the creature's glow. "Its bio readings are off the charts. I've never seen anything like it." Roger studied the creature, an idea forming. "Zephyr, can we use the ship sensor array to attempt communication with the Leviathan?" Zephyr's fingers danced across the holographic controls. "It's possible, but I've never attempted interspecies communication on this scale before." "Do it," Roger ordered. "We need to find a way past it without causing harm." As Zephyr worked to establish a connection, Commander Cragg monitored their surroundings. "We've got company," he warned, pointing to a cluster of ships approaching from the far side of the system. "Looks like General Scar's forces found us." Roger's eyebrows furrowed. "Zephyr, how's that communication coming?" "I'm picking up complex energy patterns from the Leviathan," Zephyr reported. "They seem to correlate with its bioluminescent displays. I think it's trying to communicate back." Zix moved to assist Zephyr, her nimble appendages manipulating the ship's controls. "If we can mimic its energy signature, we might be able to establish a rudimentary form of communication." As they worked, the Leviathan's massive body shifted, creating a narrow passage. Roger held his breath, guiding the Star Weaver through the opening. They passed close enough to the creature's body to see its inner organs pulsing with complex, symbol-like patterns. "Those patterns," Zephyr gasped, "they're similar to precursor writing. This creature, it must be connected to their civilization somehow." They emerged on the other side of the Leviathan, Nexus Hub Alpha now in clear view. The station was a hive of activity, with several ships docked and more circling in a defensive pattern. As they approached, Captain Phillips' voice came through their comms again. "Roger, thank God you're back. We've got a diplomatic crisis on our hands. Ambassador Rodriguez is demanding action against the Leviathan, and King Lyron is advocating for caution. Not to mention, General Scar's forces are closing in." "Understood, Captain," Roger replied. "We're docking now. Have everyone meet us in the main control room." The Star Weaver glided into the station's hangar, settling down with barely a whisper. As they disembarked, Roger turned to his team. "Zix, Zephyr, I need you to continue analyzing that creature. Find out everything you can about its connection to the precursors. Commander Cragg, assess our defensive capabilities. We need to be ready for anything. They rushed through the station's corridors, arriving at the control room to find it in chaos. Ambassador Rodriguez was in a heated argument with King Lyron's hologram, while Princess Juno and Captain Phillips struggled to maintain order. Enough! Roger's voice cut through the din. All eyes turned to him. We have multiple crises to address, and we need to work together. He quickly outlined their encounter with the Leviathan and its possible connection to the precursors. As he spoke, Zarlath approached, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Captain, I've made a breakthrough, the alien scientist announced. There's a hidden subroutine in the station systems. It suggests the Leviathan might be more than just a random creature. It could be a living fail-safe mechanism created by the precursors. Before Roger could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The main view screen flickered to life, showing General Scar's fleet emerging from warp at the edge of the system. The general's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of triumph and disdain. Surrender the precursor technology and the Nexus key fragments, he demanded, or I'll destroy this station and everyone in it. Roger's mind raced, assessing their options. The Leviathan, the diplomatic crisis, General Scar's threat. Each problem seemed insurmountable on its own. But as he looked around at his diverse team and the representatives of different species, he realized their strength lay in their unity. I have a plan, Roger announced, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility. But it's going to require all of us working together. As all eyes turned to him, Roger began to outline his strategy. The fate of Nexus Hub Alpha, the Precursor Legacy, and perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance. Whatever came next, Roger knew that the decisions made in this room would shape the course of history. History. Roger took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. We need to coordinate our efforts on multiple fronts, he began, his voice calm but authoritative. First, we must. A blaring alarm cut him off mid-sentence. The main view screen flickered, shifting from General Scar's sneering face to a startling new image. A massive fleet of sleek, silver vessels emerged from a series of wormholes, their designs unlike anything Roger had ever seen. Unidentified vessels approaching, the station's AI announced. Energy signatures indicate advanced technology of unknown origin. Before anyone could react, a transmission cut through the chaos. A deep, resonant voice filled the control room. Nexus Hub Alpha, this is Admiral Zan of the Guardians. We request permission to dock and parley. Roger exchanged quick glances with Princess Juno and Captain Phillips. The tension in the room was palpable. Guardian, Ambassador Rodriguez whispered. Who are they? Zephyr stepped forward, his eyes wide with recognition. The Guardians are mentioned in ancient precursor texts. They're said to be protectors of the precursor legacy. Roger nodded, making a split-second decision. Grant them access, but maintain heightened security protocols. Captain Phillips, assemble a security team to meet them in the docking bay. As Phillips moved to carry out the order, Roger turned to Princess Juno. Your Highness, I need you to continue diplomatic efforts with King Lyron and the other factions. We may need their support if things go south. Juno nodded, her posture straightening with tenacity. Understood, Captain. Roger led a small group, including Zephyr and Commander Cragg, to the docking bay. As they waited, the station shuddered. Through the bay's force field, they could see General Scar's fleet attempting to break free from the energy web created by the Precursor Defense Network. Commander, Roger said, his eyes fixed on the battle outside, coordinate our defensive response. Use the station's weapons and our allied ships to keep Scar's forces at bay. Cragg grunted in acknowledgement, moving to a nearby console to direct their defenses. The docking bay doors hissed open, revealing a small delegation of figures unlike any Roger had seen before. At their head stood Admiral Zan, a tall, imposing being with intricate cybernetic enhancements seamlessly integrated into his body. "Captain Roger," Zan said, his voice carrying the same resonance it had over the transmission. "We've been monitoring recent events surrounding the precursor technology. It's time we intervened." Roger stepped forward, maintaining a cautious but open stance. "Admiral, we appreciate your assistance, but we need to understand your intentions. Why reveal yourselves now?" Zan's cybernetic eyes whirred softly as they focused on Roger. The activation of the Nexus hub and the recovery of the first Nexus key fragment have set in motion events long foretold. Our order was established by the last surviving precursors to ensure their legacy would be used responsibly. Before Roger could respond, the station rocked violently. Craig's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, Scar's forces have breached the energy web. We're engaging them now, but we're outnumbered." As if in response to the escalating battle, a low, haunting sound reverberated through the station. The cosmic leviathan outside began to writhe, its massive body undulating in apparent distress. "The creature is reacting to the energy discharges," Zephyr observed, his fingers dancing over a datapad. "Its movements are creating gravitational disturbances. If this continues, it could destabilize our orbit." Admiral Zan stepped forward. "We can help. Our ships are equipped with specialized technology designed to interact with precursor bioengineered entities, like your Leviathan." Roger weighed his options quickly. The situation was spiraling out of control, and they needed every advantage they could get. "All right, Admiral. We'll work together. But I need to know we can trust you." Zen nodded solemnly. "You have my word, Captain. The Guardians stand with you." Roger tapped his comm badge. "Zix Zarlaf, I need you to work with the Guardians. Find a way to calm that creature before it tears us apart." As the scientist acknowledged his order, Roger turned back to Zan. "We need to get to the central control hub. There's something we need to try." They made their way through the chaotic corridors of Nexus Hub Alpha, personnel rushing to battle stations all around them. Upon reaching the control hub, Roger approached the central console. "We recovered a Nexus key fragment," he explained to Zan. "I believe if we integrate it with the station's systems, we might be able to unlock more of its defensive capabilities." Zan's cybernetic eyes widened. "Be cautious, Captain. The power of the Nexus key is not to be underestimated." Roger nodded, then carefully placed a fragment into a receptor on the console. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the station systems began to hum with newfound energy. Holographic displays sprang to life around them, filling the air with a dazzling array of lights and symbols. A galactic map materialized in the center of the room, pulsing markers indicating the locations of other precursor outposts and the remaining Nexus key fragments. "By the stars," Zephyr breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. As they stood in awe of the revelation before them, Princess Juno burst into the room, her face etched with concern. "Roger, I've just received an urgent communication from my father," she said, her voice tight with worry. "The Techno Syndicate has launched a major offensive in Kytion space. They're using technology clearly derived from precursor artifacts." The news hit Roger like a physical blow. They were already stretched thin dealing with the immediate threats to Nexus Hub Alpha. Now, they faced a galaxy-wide crisis. Admiral Zen stepped forward, his cybernetic enhancements glowing softly in the light of the holographic displays. "Captain, the situation has become even more critical than we anticipated. The Nexus key must be completed if we are to have any hope of countering the Syndicate's aggression." Roger's mind raced, weighing their options. The battle outside the station continued to rage, with Guardian ships now engaging both Scar's forces and the increasingly erratic cosmic Leviathan. Yet, the map before them offered a tantalizing opportunity, a chance to secure the remaining Nexus key fragments before their enemies could claim them. He made his decision, turning to address the assembled group. We need to split our resources. Princess Juno, I need you and Captain Phillips to coordinate the defense of Nexus Hub Alpha with the Guardians and our allied forces. Juno nodded, her posture straightening with purpose. You can count on us, Roger. Meanwhile, Roger continued, I'll lead a small team to secure the remaining Nexus key fragments. Commander Cragg, Zix Zarlaf, you're with me. As they moved to prepare for their respective missions, the station's long-range sensors lit up with multiple alerts. New wormhole signatures were opening in nearby systems. Zephyr's voice was grim as he reported, Captain, it appears the Techno Syndicate has launched its own efforts to claim the remaining fragments. They're moving fast. Roger's mind focused. Time was running out. Let's move, people. We've got a galaxy to save. As Roger's team boarded the advanced precursor ship they had used earlier, the weight of their mission settled heavily upon them. Behind them, Nexus Hub Alpha prepared for a prolonged siege. Ahead lay a desperate race against the Techno Syndicate, with the hope of the universe hanging in the balance. The precursor ship hummed to life, its systems responding to Zephyr's expert touch. As they prepared to depart, Roger took one last look at the chaos unfolding around Nexus Hub Alpha. He silently vowed to return with the means to end this conflict once and for all. With a burst of energy, the ship launched into space, leaving the embattled station behind. Their destination, the nearest Nexus key fragment, and one step closer to unlocking the full potential of the Precursor legacy. The Precursor ship streaked through space, its advanced propulsion system humming with power. Roger stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing their trajectory. Behind them, the Techno Syndicate's vessels appeared as distant specks, unable to match their speed. We're approaching the coordinates, Zephyr announced, his fingers dancing across the control panel. It's a moon orbiting a gas giant in a remote system. As they entered the moon's atmosphere, the ship suddenly lurched, alarms blaring throughout the cabin. Roger gripped the controls tightly, fighting to maintain their course. Severe electromagnetic interference, Zix reported, his antennae twitching with agitation. Our navigation systems are compromised. Roger's face hardened, switching to manual control. Commander Cragg, I need your eyes. Cragg moved swiftly to Roger's side, his military training kicking in. Terrain's treacherous, Captain. Jagged peaks at 2 o'clock, dense forest cover below. Roger nodded, guiding the ship through a narrow pass between towering rock formations. The vessel shuddered as it grazed an outcropping, but Roger held steady. There, Cragg pointed, a clearing in the forest half a click ahead. With expert precision, Roger eased the ship down, landing gently in the small open area. As the engines powered down, the team quickly donned their gear, activating personal shield generators. Stepping out onto the alien world, they were immediately struck by the bizarre flora surrounding them. Bioluminescent plants pulsed with an eerie glow, reacting to their presence. Tendrils of mist curled around their ankles as they moved. Zix held up a portable scanner, its screen flickering in the electromagnetic disturbance. Energy signature is strongest in that direction, he said, gesturing towards a particularly dense section of jungle. As they pushed through the thick vegetation, Zarlaf suddenly halted. Look, he breathed, pointing ahead. Emerging from the glowing foliage was a structure unlike any they had seen before. Its smooth, curved surfaces were overgrown with vines and moss, but the distinct precursor architecture was unmistakable. An outpost, Roger murmured, approaching cautiously. Zarlaf moved forward, his eyes scanning the partially eroded inscriptions on the entrance. It appears to have been a biological research facility, he translated, his voice tinged with excitement. As they entered the facility, The air grew thick with tension. Suddenly, a beam of energy sizzled past Roger's ear, impacting the wall behind him. Automated defenses, Cragg shouted, diving for cover. Still active after all this time. The team scrambled, dodging energy blasts and leaping over suddenly appearing chasms in the floor. Cragg took point, his combat training evident as he guided them through the deadly maze. "Watch your step," he barked as a section of floor shifted beneath them. Zarlath stumbled, nearly falling into a pit of swirling energy before Roger yanked him back. They pressed on, deeper into the heart of the facility. The defenses grew more intense, robotic sentries emerging from hidden alcoves to bar their path. Cragg's expert marksmanship cleared the way, each shot finding its mark with deadly precision. Finally, they reached a massive circular chamber. In its center, a pulsing crystal hovered within a force field, the Nexus key fragment. But as they approached, they realized the fragment wasn't just a power source. It was maintaining a massive stasis field, within which floated countless alien life forms, perfectly preserved. Roger's heart sank as he grasped the implications. If we remove the fragment, we'll release everything in stasis, Zarlath finished grimly. Before Roger could respond, Zix's scanner began beeping urgently. "Multiple ships entering the system," he reported. "Techno Syndicate signatures." Roger's mind raced, weighing their options. The fragment was vital to their mission, but releasing potential threats into the galaxy was unthinkable. Zix stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with an idea. "Captain, if we reroute power from our ship's core, we might be able to maintain the stasis field long enough to extract the fragment safely." Roger nodded, his decision made. "Do it. Cragg, Zarlath, prep the ship for immediate departure. We'll need to move fast once we have the fragment." As Zix began the delicate process of integrating their ship's systems with the stasis field, the facility suddenly came to life around them. Holographic displays flickered into existence, revealing a recorded message left by the precursor scientists. The hologram spoke in an alien language, but Zarlath translated rapidly, his voice growing more urgent with each word. "They're warning us about one of the specimens," he said. "A highly aggressive parasitic life form, capable of assimilating other species. They couldn't destroy it, only contain it." Roger's blood ran cold. He turned to Cragg. "New plan. We're rigging this place to blow. Nothing can be allowed to escape." As Cragg and Zarlath rushed to set the explosives, the sound of distant ships landing reached them. The Techno Syndicate had arrived. "Zix, status on the fragment?" Roger called. "Almost there," Zix replied, his hands moving with incredible speed over the control panel. "Just a few more seconds." A loud crash echoed through the facility. The Syndicate forces had breached the outer defenses. "We're out of time," Roger said grimly. "Zix, now or never." With a final adjustment, Zix extracted the Nexus key fragment, quickly securing it in a portable containment unit. The stasis field flickered ominously, but held as power from their ship kept it stable. "Move!" Roger ordered, and the team sprinted for the exit. They burst out of the facility into chaos. The alien jungle was transforming before their eyes, plants and animals mutating rapidly as the parasitic life form began to spread. In the distance, Techno Syndicate troops advanced, led by a figure Roger assumed must be Commander Vex. Laser fire erupted around them as they ran for their ship. Cragg returned fire, providing cover as they climbed aboard. As the ship's engines roared to life, Roger saw the horrifying speed at which the parasitic infection was spreading. "Cragg, detonate the charges," he shouted as they lifted off. The explosion rocked their ship, the shockwave propelling them higher into the atmosphere. Behind them, the precursor facility and the nightmarish infection disappeared in a ball of fire. As they broke free of the moon's gravity, Roger received an urgent transmission. Princess Juno's hologram appeared, her face etched with worry. "Roger, we need you back at Nexus Hub Alpha immediately," she said, her voice barely audible over the sound of explosions in the background. "General Scar has launched an all-out assault. The cosmic Leviathan is out of control. We can't hold out much longer." Roger looked at the Nexus key fragment they had secured, then back at Juno's pleading face. The next fragment's location beckoned, but every moment they delayed put Nexus Hub Alpha at greater risk. With the destiny of the universe hanging in the balance, Roger prepared to make a decision that would shape the course of the conflict to come. Roger's eyes darted between the Nexus key fragment and Juno's hologram, his mind racing. In a split-second decision, he tapped the ship's intercom. "Crag, Zarlath, prepare for immediate departure. You're taking the fragment back to Nexus Hub Alpha." Crag's gruff voice crackled through the speaker. "Sir, no time to argue. The station needs that fragment more than we do right now. Zix and I will continue the mission." As Crag and Zarlath's show detached from the precursor vessel, Roger plotted a new course. The ship's advanced navigation system hummed to life, calculating a path through a series of unstable wormholes. "Zix, strap in," Roger called out. "This ride's about to get bumpy." The precursor ship lurched forward, plunging into the first wormhole. Streaks of energy crackled across the view screen as they hurtled through space-time. Behind them, the pursuing Techno-Syndicate ships fell away, unable to match their speed or navigate the treacherous path. Emerging from the final wormhole, Roger and Zix found themselves facing a massive asteroid field surrounding a dwarf star. The ship's sensors pinged, detecting a familiar energy signature emanating from the largest asteroid. "There," Zix said, his antennae twitching with excitement. "The next fragment." As they approached, the true nature of the asteroid became clear. It had been hollowed out and transformed into a sprawling mining facility. Multiple ships were docked at various ports, their insignias a mix of independent operations and suspected Techno-Syndicate fronts. Roger's hands danced across the controls, activating the ship's cloaking technology. They glided silently through the asteroid field, narrowly avoiding collisions with the tumbling rocks. The precursor vessel's advanced sensors and Roger's enhanced reflexes worked in perfect harmony, guiding them safely to an abandoned mining port. "Suit up," Roger ordered, reaching for his environmental gear. "We're going in quiet." Donning their suits and activating personal cloaking devices, Roger and Zix entered the facility through a rarely used airlock. The interior was a maze of tunnels and caverns, the air thick with the scent of minerals and machinery. As they made their way deeper into the complex, snippets of conversation reached their ears. Rough voices discussed recent hauls, black market prices, and a particularly valuable find deep within the asteroid's core. "Did you hear?" one miner whispered to another. "They found something big down in the lower levels. Techno-Syndicates got it locked down tight." Roger and Zix exchanged glances. There was no doubt. The Nexus key fragment was here. They pressed on, navigating through the labyrinthine tunnels. Automated security drones patrolled at regular intervals, their sensors sweeping for unauthorized presences. Zix's scientific expertise proved invaluable, allowing them to bypass complex security systems with ease. In one narrow passage, they encountered a group of armed guards. Roger's combat training kicked in as he swiftly and silently neutralized the threat, ensuring no alarms were raised. After what felt like hours of careful infiltration, they reached a heavily fortified chamber. Through a reinforced viewport, they saw it. The Nexus key fragment, pulsing with energy as it powered an enormous experimental mining drill. "We need a distraction," Roger murmured, his mind already formulating a plan. "Zix, can you access their power distribution network from here?" The alien scientist nodded, his fingers flying over a nearby control panel. "Give me 2 minutes." As Zix worked, Roger surveyed the room. A dozen Techno Syndicate mercenaries stood guard, led by a scarred, imposing figure he assumed must be Commander Drax. Suddenly, the facility shook with a series of explosions. Alarms blared as systems failed across the complex. In the ensuing chaos, Roger nodded to Zix. "Now's our chance. Go!" Zix slipped past the panicking guards, making his way to the fragment. With practiced precision, he disabled its connection to the mining drill and secured it in a portable containment unit. As they turned to leave, a voice cut through the chaos. "Stop them." Drax had spotted them. Roger pushed Zix ahead. "Run. I'll hold them off." What followed was a desperate chase through the crumbling facility. Roger fought his way through waves of mercenaries, his enhanced abilities giving him an edge in the close-quarters combat. Zix used his knowledge of the facility's layout to guide them back to their ship, narrowly avoiding cave-ins and malfunctioning machinery. They reached the docking bay just as Drax and his remaining forces caught up. Laser fire peppered the air around them as they sprinted for their vessel. "Start the engines," Roger shouted as they neared the ship. Zix leapt aboard, his hands flying over the controls. Just as Roger prepared to follow, a searing pain tore through his leg. He stumbled, turning to see Drax aiming a smoking weapon at him. "The fragment," Drax snarled. "Hand it over, or the next shot goes through your head." Roger's mind raced, searching for a way out. Suddenly, the ship's engines roared to life behind him. Using the momentary distraction, he lunged forward, tackling Drax to the ground. The two grappled fiercely, trading blows as they fought for control. Roger managed to break free, scrambling towards the ship's open hatch. Laser fire erupted around him as he dove inside. "Go!" he yelled to Zix as the hatch sealed shut. The precursor vessel lifted off, narrowly avoiding the grasping arms of a massive loading crane Drax had commandeered in a last-ditch effort to stop them. As they cleared the asteroid's gravitational field, Roger allowed himself a moment of relief. It was short-lived. "Incoming transmission," Zix announced, his voice tight with concern. Princess Juno's hologram flickered to life, her face etched with desperation. "Roger, we need you back at Nexus Hub Alpha immediately. The cosmic Leviathan is tearing the station apart. We can't hold out much longer." Behind her, explosions illuminated the command center. The sounds of battle echoed through the transmission. Roger's grip tightened on the ship's controls. They had the fragment, but Drax's attack had damaged their propulsion systems. Making it back to Nexus Hub Alpha in time would push the ship to its limits. As if to emphasize the point, proximity alarms blared. Drax's ship had launched, giving chase through the asteroid field. Roger faced an impossible choice: risk everything to rush back to the station, or focus on evading Drax to ensure the safety of the newly acquired fragment. With the fate of Nexus Hub Alpha hanging in the balance, Roger took a deep breath and made his decision. The hope of the universe hung in the balance, and there was no time for hesitation. "Zix, plot a course through the unstable wormhole network," Roger ordered, his hands flying over the ship's controls. "We're going to attempt to reach Nexus Hub Alpha and shake off Drax in one move." Zix's antennae twitched with nervous energy as he input the coordinates. "Captain, the odds of successfully navigating this network with our damaged propulsion systems are—" "Never tell me the odds," Roger cut him off, engaging the ship's engines. "Just make it happen." The precursor vessel lurched forward, plunging into the first wormhole. Streaks of energy crackled across the view screen as they hurtled through space-time. The ship groaned under the intense gravitational forces, its advanced technology struggling to compensate for the extreme conditions. Behind them, Drax's ship gave chase, but it quickly became apparent that the Techno Syndicate vessel lacked the sophistication to keep up. As they emerged from the second wormhole, Roger caught a glimpse of Drax's ship spinning out of control, lost in the chaotic space-time fluctuations. "We've lost our tail," Zix reported, his voice strained as he fought to keep the ship's system stable. "But our structural integrity is down to 62% and falling." Roger gritted his teeth, pushing the ship's engines harder. "We'll hold together. We have to." As they navigated the treacherous wormhole network, the ship's interior was bathed in an otherworldly glow. Time seemed to stretch and compress around them, seconds feeling like hours and minutes passing in the blink of an eye. Roger's enhanced reflexes were pushed to their limits as he guided the vessel through the unpredictable turbulence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity compressed into mere moments, they emerged from the last wormhole. The sight that greeted them sent a chill down Roger's spine. Nexus Hub Alpha was in chaos. The massive form of the cosmic Leviathan enveloped the station, its tentacles pulsing with energy as they crushed the outer layers. Explosions dotted the structure as General Scar's fleet bombarded the weakening shields. Allied ships formed a desperate defensive perimeter, engaging in a furious battle that lit up space with weapons fire. "My God," Zix whispered, his scientific detachment momentarily shattered by the scale of the destruction. Roger's teeth clenched as he piloted the battered precursor ship towards the station. "Zix, scan the Leviathan. See if you can figure out why it's attacking." As they wove through the battlefield, dodging debris and weapons fire, Zix's fingers danced across the sensor controls. "Fascinating," he muttered. "The creature's biology is reacting to the Nexus key fragments. It's almost as if, Captain, I believe the cosmic Leviathan might be a living precursor artifact." Roger's mind raced, processing the implications. "You mean it's responding to the assembly of the complete Nexus key?" "Precisely," Zix confirmed. "If we could activate all the fragments simultaneously, we might be able to establish a stable connection with the Leviathan." Without hesitation, Roger made his decision. "Prep the fragments for activation. We're going to calm this beast and unlock its true purpose." As they approached the station's main docking bay, a squadron of General Scar's fighters moved to intercept them. Roger's hands flew over the weapons controls, the precursor vessel's advanced targeting systems locking onto the approaching ships. "Hang on," he shouted as he executed a series of evasive maneuvers. The ship rolled and spun, its damaged systems protesting but holding together. Energy beams lanced out from their weapons, cutting through the enemy fighters with surgical precision. A transmission crackled through their comms. "Roger, this is Princess Juno. We're clearing a path for you. Get to the central control hub as fast as you can." The station's remaining defensive systems came to life, providing cover fire as Roger guided their ship into the docking bay. As they touched down, the massive eye of the cosmic Leviathan shifted, focusing on their position. Its bioluminescent patterns pulsed with increased intensity, as if sensing the presence of the Nexus key fragments. Roger and Zix disembarked, clutching the precious fragments. They were met by a battered but determined group led by Princess Juno and Commander Crag. "The station's tearing itself apart," Crag growled, his armor scorched and dented. "We've got Techno-Syndicate infiltrators in the lower levels, and that damn Leviathan is crushing us from the outside." "We have a plan," Roger said, holding up the fragments. "But we need to get to the central control hub immediately." Princess Juno nodded, her eyes reflecting the persistence of a leader facing impossible odds. "Follow me. We've got a clear path, but it won't last long." As they raced through the corridors of Nexus Hub Alpha, the station shuddered around them. Alarms blared and the sounds of distant combat echoed through the structure. They passed groups of evacuating personnel and defenders engaged in firefights with Techno-Syndicate forces. They reached a sealed bulkhead, beyond which lay the central control hub. As Juno input the access codes, Roger turned to Zix. "The moment we're inside, start the activation sequence for the fragments," he ordered. "We might only get one shot at this." The bulkhead hissed open, revealing the heart of Nexus Hub Alpha. Holographic displays filled the air, showing the ongoing battle outside and the increasingly erratic behavior of the cosmic Leviathan. Captain Phillips looked up from a console, his face haggard but his eyes bright with hope. "Roger, thank the stars you're here. We've made a breakthrough in understanding the Leviathan's behavior, but we need those fragments to implement a solution." As Zix hurried to a central platform to begin the activation sequence, Roger surveyed the room. "What about Admiral Zan's plan to establish a psychic link?" "In progress," Juno replied, gesturing to a group of Guardian pilots in a meditative state, their consciousness projected towards the massive creature outside. "But they're struggling to maintain the connection. The Leviathan's mind is vast." Suddenly, the station rocked with a massive impact. General Scar's voice boomed through the comms, filled with triumphant malice. "Your shields are down, Nexus fools. Prepare to be boarded." Roger's hand tightened on his weapon as he looked at the assembled group. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but that of the entire galaxy. With the cosmic Leviathans still fixed on their position and enemy forces closing in, they prepared to make their final stand. Zix's voice cut through the tension. Activation sequence initiated. Nexus key fragments at 30% power and rising. As the energy began to build, the room filled with an otherworldly hum. The battle outside seemed to fade away. All attention focused on the pulsing fragments and the unknowable mind of the creature they hoped to reach. In this moment of crisis, with enemies at the gates and a cosmic enigma at their doorstep, the fate of Nexus Hub Alpha hung in the balance. The fate of Nexus Hub Alpha hung in the air like a fragile crystal. But there was no time for contemplation. The moment Roger and his team stepped to the bulkhead into the central control hub, chaos erupted. A barrage of energy blasts forced them to dive for cover. Vex and his Techno Syndicate infiltrators had fortified their position, turning the hub into a killing field. Roger's enhanced reflexes kicked in as he rolled behind a console, narrowly avoiding a stream of plasma fire. "Zix, status on those fragments," he shouted over the din of battle. The xenobiologist's antennae twitched as he examined the glowing artifacts. "Energy levels rising rapidly, Captain. They're resonating with the station's core technology." Princess Juno slid into cover beside them, her elegant attire now scorched and torn. "We need to push forward. The evacuation is only 60% complete." As if to punctuate her words, the station shuddered violently. The cosmic Leviathan's grip tightened, sending tremors through the structure. Warning klaxons blared as emergency bulkheads slammed shut throughout Nexus Hub Alpha. Commander Craig's gruff voice cut through the chaos. "We need a plan of attack. They've got us pinned down." Roger's mind raced, assessing their options. The fragments in his hand pulsed with increasing intensity, their glow casting eerie shadows across the battle-scarred hub. An idea formed, dangerous and desperate. "Zix, can you overload the nearby power conduits?" Roger asked, his eyes fixed on the main control console where Vex stood, a triumphant sneer on his face. The alien scientist nodded, comprehension dawning. "A localized electromagnetic pulse." "Brilliant, Captain." "On my mark," Roger instructed, tensing for action. The next few seconds stretched into eternity. Roger waited for the perfect moment, feeling the rhythm of the battle around him. Then, with a surge of adrenaline, he sprang into action. "Now!" he roared, hurling the Nexus key fragments towards the control console. Simultaneously, Zix's fingers flew over his datapad. The power conduits overloaded, releasing a surge of energy that collided with the airborne fragments. A blinding flash erupted, followed by a wave of force that swept through the hub. The electromagnetic pulse hit Vex stolen command systems like a hammer blow. Screens flickered and died, plunging the hub into momentary darkness. In the confusion, Roger and his team seized their chance. Commander Cragg led the charge, his battle-hardened form a blur of motion as he engaged the nearest Syndicate operatives. Princess Juno was right behind him, displaying a level of combat prowess that belied her royal upbringing. Roger fought his way towards the main console, every step a struggle against the press of bodies and the ongoing tremors racking the station. He could see Vex recovering, reaching for a backup system to regain control. Just as Roger's fingers brushed the Nexus key fragments, a weight slammed into him from behind. He spun, coming face to face with Vex himself. The Syndicate leader's eyes blazed with fury as they grappled for control of the fragments. In their struggle, Roger's hand slipped, inadvertently activating one of the Nexus key pieces. A surge of energy exploded outward, enveloping both men in a cocoon of pulsing light. The field expanded rapidly, freezing everyone in the hub in place. Silence fell, broken only by the distant groans of the station's superstructure. Then, in the center of the room, a hologram flickered to life. The image coalesced into the form of a being unlike any Roger had ever seen, unmistakably a precursor. The ancient alien spoke, its words incomprehensible, yet somehow clear to all who heard them. It revealed the true nature of the cosmic Leviathan, not as a mindless destroyer, but as a final test. The violence, the chaos, all of it had been a crucible to prove their worth as inheritors of precursor legacy. As the hologram faded, movement returned to the frozen combatants. The station's shaking subsided, and reports flooded into the Leviathan, releasing its grip on Nexus Hub Alpha. For a moment, a fragile peace settled over the hub. But before anyone could process the revelation, a new alarm shattered the quiet. Proximity warnings screamed to life as a massive fleet materialized from hyperspace. The main view screen flickered on, revealing an armada that dwarfed anything they had faced before. At its center loomed a vessel of nightmarish proportions, jam-packed with weapons that pulsed with corrupted precursor energy. Roger's grip tightened on the Nexus key fragments as he stared at the approaching threat. The true battle, it seemed, was only just beginning. "Everyone to your stations," he barked, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Zix, I need full power to those fragments. Juno, contact every allied ship in range. Cragg, prepare our defenses." As the team sprang into action, Roger turned his gaze to the cosmic Leviathan still visible through the hub's viewport. The creature's massive eyes seemed to focus on him, filled with ancient intelligence. "I hope you're ready for round 2, Roger muttered, bracing himself for the fight to come. "Come," Roger muttered, bracing himself for the fight to come. The massive Techno-Syndicate fleet loomed ever larger on the display, its weapons already charging with corrupted precursor energy. Roger's mind raced, processing the implications of the precursor hologram's revelation and the newfound connection with the cosmic Leviathan. "Everyone listen up," he called out, his voice cutting through the tension. "We've got one shot at this. Zix, I need you to help me unlock the full potential of these fragments. Juno, coordinate with Admiral Zan and our allies. Cragg, fortify our defenses. Let's move." As the team sprang into action, Roger rushed to the main control console. With practiced precision, he inserted the remaining Nexus key fragments into specially designed slots. The console hummed to life, holographic displays flickering with ancient precursor symbols. Zix hurried to Roger's side, his multiple eyes darting between the symbols and his datapad. "Fascinating," he murmured. "The syntax is unlike anything I've seen before, but I'm starting to see patterns. Give me a moment to interface with the station systems." Outside, the battle erupted in earnest. The Techno-Syndicate's twisted precursor weapons lashed out, their energy beams slicing through the shields of several allied vessels as if they were tissue paper. The space around Nexus Hub Alpha lit up with weapons fire and explosions, casting eerie shadows across the central hub. Princess Juno's voice rang out clear and commanding as she coordinated with the allied fleet. Admiral Zan, form a defensive perimeter around the station. Cruiser Squadron Delta, reinforce our portside flank. Guardian Wings, prepare for intercept maneuvers. Commander Cragg barked orders into his comm unit, directing the station's personnel to key defensive positions. Seal off all non-essential areas, he growled. I want security teams at every major junction. Be ready for boarding actions. As chaos unfolded around him, Roger focused intently on the control console. His enhanced human intuition kicked in, allowing him to see beyond the complexity of the precursor interface. He began manipulating the energy flow between the fragments, causing the station to hum with increasing power. Suddenly, dormant systems throughout Nexus Hub Alpha sprang to life. Hidden weapon emplacements emerged from concealed ports, their barrels glowing with charged energy. Shield generators, far more powerful than anything the station had possessed before, crackled to life, enveloping the structure in a shimmering barrier. Outside, the cosmic Leviathan responded to the surge of precursor energy. Its massive tentacles moved with newfound purpose, interposing its bulk between the station and the attacking fleet. The creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted rapidly, forming complex shapes that seemed to disrupt the enemy's targeting systems. Roger, look, Zix exclaimed, pointing to a readout on his datapad. The Leviathan's energy signature is aligning with the station's. It's as if they're forming a symbiotic link. Before Roger could respond, a commotion erupted behind them. Vex, seizing the moment of distraction, lunged for a nearby control panel. His fingers flew across the interface, attempting to transmit the station's command codes to the Techno Syndicate flagship. Commander Cragg reacted with lightning speed. He launched himself across the room, tackling Vex just as the traitor's hand hovered over the final command key. The two men crashed to the floor, grappling fiercely in a brutal close-quarters fight. Keep working, Cragg shouted as he struggled with Vex. I've got this under control. Roger turned back to the console, his hands dancing across the controls with increasing confidence. The station's AI began to integrate with the precursor technology, evolving rapidly into a more advanced form. Holographic interfaces throughout the central hub displayed real-time battle information, allowing for unprecedented coordination between the station's defenses and the Allied fleet. Princess Juno's eyes widened as she studied the tactical displays. There, she exclaimed, pointing to a gap in the Techno Syndicate's formation. Admiral Zan, do you see it? If we concentrate our fire on that point, we might be able to punch through their line. As the Allies mounted a coordinated assault on the enemy's weak point, Roger felt a strange sensation wash over him. The Nexus key fragments pulsed with energy, and he found his consciousness expanding, connecting with something vast and alien. In a flash of insight, Roger realized he had established a direct neural link with the cosmic Leviathan. Through this connection, he gained access to the creature's immense sensory capabilities and its ability to manipulate energy fields on a cosmic scale. Guided by Roger's consciousness, the Leviathan began to move with deadly precision. Its enormous tentacles lashed out, grappling with Techno Syndicate ships. Smaller vessels were crushed in its grip, while larger ones found their systems disrupted by localized energy distortions. The battle reached a fever pitch as the Techno Syndicate flagship, a behemoth filled with corrupted precursor technology, launched a desperate, all-out attack on Nexus Hub Alpha. A concentrated beam of energy, powerful enough to shatter a planet, lanced out towards the station's core. Roger, still linked with the cosmic Leviathan, reacted instinctively. He directed the creature to interpose itself between the station and the incoming beam. The Leviathan's body absorbed the full force of the attack, its bioluminescent patterns flaring with blinding intensity. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as though the creature might be destroyed. But then, something incredible happened. The Leviathan began to change, its form shifting and adapting in response to the energy it had absorbed. its tentacles elongated and multiplied, forming a complex, web-like structure around Nexus Hub Alpha and the Allied fleet. Zix's eyes widened as he monitored the energy readings. "Captain," he called out, his voice filled with awe, "the Leviathan is channeling the absorbed energy through its new structure. It's using pure precursor energy to target the enemy ships." Pulses of brilliant energy surged through the Leviathan's tentacles, striking the Techno-Syndicate vessels with unerring accuracy. Each pulse caused the corrupted precursor technology to overload and shut down, leaving the ships powerless and adrift in space. As the tide of battle turned decisively in their favor, Roger maintained his neural link with the cosmic Leviathan. He guided its actions, using its energy manipulation abilities to create localized stasis fields around the disabled enemy ships. The creature preserved the lives of the enemy crews while rendering their vessels harmless. With the immediate threat neutralized, a new challenge emerged. The cosmic Leviathan, now evolved into an even more complex and powerful form, remained intimately connected to Nexus Hub Alpha through the Nexus Key. Its vast consciousness, augmented by precursor technology, began to interface directly with the station systems. Alarms blared throughout the station, warning of critical system overloads. The sheer volume of information and energy being processed threatened to overwhelm their defenses from within. Roger's mind raced as he grappled with the enormity of the situation. He realized that the fate of the station, the Leviathan, and potentially the entire galaxy now hinged on his ability to balance these immense forces. "Zix," he called out, his voice tense with concentration. "I need options. How do we stabilize this connection without losing control?" As Zix began to analyze the surging energy patterns, Roger focused on maintaining the delicate balance between the cosmic Leviathan, the Nexus Key, and Nexus Hub Alpha. The challenge before them was unlike anything they had faced before, with the potential to reshape the very nature of their existence in the cosmos. Universe. Roger's enhanced mind raced with possibilities, each more staggering than the last. Suddenly, the control console beneath his fingers pulsed with renewed energy. Roger's instincts kicked in, and he began manipulating the flow between the Nexus Key fragments with practiced precision. The station systems responded, power levels fluctuating as he worked to establish a delicate balance. "Zix, I need options now," Roger called out, his voice tense with concentration. The Vexillian's multiple eyes darted between his datapad and the surrounding consoles. "Captain, I'm detecting previously hidden access panels activating throughout the hub. They seem to be specialized interfaces for different precursor systems." Without hesitation, Zix rushed to the nearest panel, his fingers flying across the alien controls. As he input commands, the energy surges threatening to overwhelm the station began to stabilize. Princess Juno, who had been tending to the injured Commander Crag, suddenly received an urgent communication. Her eyes widened as she listened to the report. "Roger, Admiral Zan is reporting that the disabled Techno-Syndicate ships are showing signs of reactivation," she announced, her voice tight with concern. "Their corrupted precursor tech is adapting to the energy pulses that shut them down." Roger nodded grimly, his hands never leaving the console. "Have the Allied fleet establish a defensive perimeter around those ships. We can't risk them rejoining the fight." As Juno relayed the orders, a new crisis erupted within Nexus Hub Alpha. Alarms blared as the massive influx of energy from the cosmic Leviathan overloaded the station's power grid. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing off entire sections of the structure. Commander Crag struggled to his feet, ignoring the pain from his injuries. "I'll handle this," he growled, limping towards a nearby communications panel. "Station AI. Prioritize life support and structural integrity. Reroute power from non-essential systems." As Crag coordinated the internal crisis response, Roger's efforts at the main control console began to yield results. The frenzied movements of the cosmic Leviathan outside the station slowed, its bioluminescent patterns shifting into a more regular, pulsating rhythm. Roger gasped as his neural link with the creature deepened, granting him access to vast stores of precursor knowledge. The information threatened to overwhelm his mind, but his enhanced physiology allowed him to process the data at an unprecedented rate. Zix called out from across the room, "Captain, I've made a breakthrough. By synchronizing these precursor subsystems, I've created a more efficient energy distribution network. It's buying us time, but we need a permanent solution." As the immediate crises began to subside, a new development caught their attention. The cosmic Leviathan, now more integrated with Nexus Hub Alpha, started to reconfigure the station's external structure. Massive tendrils of energy extended from the creature, intertwining with the station's architecture. Princess Juno studied the holographic displays with a mix of awe and trepidation. "Roger, look at this. The Leviathan isn't just modifying the station, it's merging with it." Through his neural link, Roger experienced a sudden epiphany. "It's fulfilling its primary directive," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "The Leviathan is trying to pass on the precursor legacy. It's creating a new entity that bridges the gap between their ancient civilization and ours." Recognizing the potential of this transformation, Roger began guiding the process through his connection with the Leviathan. He focused on integrating the strengths of each component: the creature's adaptive biology, the station's advanced technology, and the Nexus Key's ability to unlock precursor systems. As the merger continued, the station's capabilities expanded exponentially. Roger felt the surge of power at his fingertips, granting him access to technological marvels beyond his wildest dreams. However, this rapid evolution brought new challenges. The newly formed hybrid entity began to exhibit signs of an emerging consciousness, distinct from both the cosmic Leviathan and Nexus Hub Alpha's AI. This new awareness exerted its own will on the station's systems, fighting against Roger's control. As Roger struggled to maintain his grip on the evolving entity, alarms blared throughout the central hub. Zix's eyes widened as he studied the long-range sensor data. "Captain, multiple wormholes opening at the edge of the system," he exclaimed. "A massive fleet is emerging. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Princess Juno rushed to analyze the incoming fleet's composition. Her face paled as she recognized the markings on the ships. "It's not just one civilization," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. "There are vessels from every major galactic power, human, Kaitiana, and more." News of the precursor technology must have spread throughout the galaxy. Roger's mind raced as he grappled with the evolving hybrid entity while processing this new threat. The arrival of this diverse armada presented both danger and opportunity. They would need to defend against potential hostile actions while trying to convince the galactic powers of the importance of cooperation. As the massive fleet drew closer, Roger felt the hybrid consciousness push against his control once more. He gritted his teeth, focusing all his enhanced abilities on maintaining the delicate balance between the Leviathan, the station, and the Nexus Key. "Everyone, prepare for contact," Roger called out, his voice steady despite the strain. "We're about to face the greatest challenge of our lives. Whatever happens next will determine the fate of not just Nexus Hub Alpha, but potentially the entire galaxy." The central hub buzzed with tense activity as Roger and his team braced themselves for the next phase of their extraordinary journey. Outside, the merged form of the cosmic Leviathan and Nexus Hub Alpha pulsed with otherworldly energy, a beacon of precursor legacy that had drawn the attention of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. As the first ships of the incoming fleet entered visual range, Roger took a deep breath, steeling himself for the monumental task ahead. The true test of their worth as inheritors of the precursor legacy was about to begin. The true test of their worth as inheritors of the precursor legacy was about to unfold in ways none of them could have anticipated. As the first ships of the massive fleet emerged from the wormholes, Nexus Hub Alpha's sensors lit up with activity. The central hub erupted into a flurry of motion as Roger and his team scrambled to respond to this new development. "Multiple contacts, Captain," Zix called out, his eyes darting between holographic displays. "I'm reading signatures from every major galactic power, human, Kytion, and more. It's an unprecedented gathering." Roger's mind raced, processing the influx of information through his neural link with the hybrid entity. The merged consciousness of the cosmic Leviathan, Nexus Hub Alpha, and the Nexus Key pulsed with curiosity, reaching out tendrils of energy towards the nearest ships. "They're attempting to establish connections," Roger said, his voice strained with concentration. "Similar to what it did with us." Princess Juno, her royal training kicking in, moved swiftly to the communications array. "We need to act fast," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. "I'm initiating emergency diplomatic protocols." A moment later, her voice rang out across all channels, addressing the incoming fleet. "Attention, representatives of the galactic powers. This is Princess Juno of Kytia aboard Nexus Hub Alpha. We request an immediate ceasefire and propose an emergency summit. The technology at stake here could reshape the future of our entire galaxy. Please let us meet and discuss this peacefully." As Juno's message echoed across space, Commander Cragg limped to a nearby tactical station, wincing with each step. "We can't rely on diplomacy alone," he growled, activating the station's defense systems. "Allied ships, form a protective barrier around Nexus Hub Alpha. Create a buffer zone between us and the incoming fleet." The remaining Guardian forces and their allies moved into position, their ships forming a protective sphere around the station. As they did so, the hybrid entity surged with power, upgrading Nexus Hub Alpha's shield systems in real time. Zix called out from his position at the precursor access panels. "Captain, the entity is creating new organic technological interfaces throughout the station. It's giving us unprecedented control, but power distribution is becoming unpredictable." As if to emphasize his point, the lights in the central hub flickered, and several consoles sparked with excess energy. Roger gritted his teeth, focusing his enhanced mind on stabilizing the connection between himself and the evolving hybrid consciousness. "Incoming transmission," Juno announced, her voice tight with anticipation. "Several fleet leaders have accepted our invitation for a summit. They're sending shuttles to dock with Nexus Hub Alpha." As the diplomatic shuttles approached, Roger sensed a shift in the hybrid entity's focus. Through their shared connection, he felt its curiosity about the diverse species represented in the incoming delegations. The station began to reconfigure itself, creating specialized environments to accommodate the biological needs of each visiting species. "Fascinating," Zix muttered, monitoring the changes. "It's adapting the station's internal structure in real time. This level of technological integration is beyond anything we've ever seen." The first shuttle docked, and Ambassador Elena Rodriguez of Earth stepped onto Nexus Hub Alpha, her eyes wide as she took in the transformed interior. Behind her came King Lyron of Kytia, his regal bearing at odds with the concern etched on his face. "Juno," he called out, striding towards his daughter. "What in the name of the ancient stars have you gotten yourself involved in?" Before Juno could respond, the hybrid entity seized control of the station's communication systems. It began broadcasting vast amounts of precursor knowledge to the assembled fleets, overwhelming their data networks with a torrent of advanced information. Alarms blared throughout the central hub as chaos erupted among the gathered forces. Ships veered off course, their systems overloaded by the sudden influx of data. Roger felt the panic and confusion rippling through the fleet commanders' minds. "It's trying to share everything at once," he said, his voice strained with effort. "I need to focus its efforts." Concentrating all his mental energy, Roger directed the hybrid entity to narrow its broadcast. He guided it towards specific, manageable packets of information, advancements in energy production, medical technology, and faster-than-light travel. As the flow of information stabilized, the gathered leaders began to see the potential benefits of the precursor legacy. Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "This technology could revolutionize every aspect of our civilization," she said, addressing the room. "We must find a way to study and utilize it cooperatively." King Lyron, however, remained skeptical. "And what are the risks?" he demanded, gesturing at the chaotic scene around them. "This power could just as easily destroy us all." The delicate negotiations were suddenly interrupted by a shout from Zix. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a new threat. A second wave of techno-syndicate forces has just emerged from hyperspace." All eyes turned to the holographic display as a massive fleet, larger and more heavily armed than the first, appeared at the edge of the system. The ships, filled with corrupted precursor technology, began a rapid approach towards Nexus Hub Alpha. Roger felt the hybrid entity's consciousness surge with alarm, its energy tendrils coiling defensively around the station. The gathered leaders fell silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on them all. "We need to make a decision," Roger said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Retreat, defend, or take the fight to them. Whatever we choose, we need to do it now." As the Techno-Syndicate fleet drew nearer, Roger and his team braced themselves for the crucial moments ahead. The fate of not just Nexus Hub Alpha, but potentially the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The true test of their ability to wield the power of the precursors was about to begin. The tension in the central hub was palpable as Roger's words hung in the air. The gathered leaders exchanged glances, their faces etched with a mix of fear and perseverance. In that crucial moment, a unanimous decision crystallized among them. Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward, her voice steady and resolute. "We stand together. The Techno-Syndicate threatens not just Nexus Hub Alpha, but the future of our entire galaxy. We must unite our forces to defend this station and the precursor legacy it holds." King Lyron nodded gravely, his earlier skepticism giving way to grim acceptance. "Agreed. The Kytion fleet stands ready to fight alongside our allies." As murmurs of assent rippled through the assembled leaders, Roger felt a surge of energy through his neural link. The hybrid entity, sensing the unity of purpose, began to extend its influence beyond the confines of Nexus Hub Alpha. Massive tendrils of organic technological energy unfurled from the station, stretching out to encompass the Allied fleet. The ship's crews watched in awe as a shimmering energy field enveloped their vessels, creating a vast, interconnected defensive network. Commander Cragg, his face contorted with pain but eyes blazing with dedication, limped to the central tactical display. "We need to coordinate our defenses," he growled, fingers flying over the controls. "I'm establishing a real-time communication network across all Allied ships. We'll arrange our forces in a multi-layered formation, maximizing each species' strengths." As Cragg barked orders, the diverse fleet began to move into position. Human ships, known for their adaptability, formed the outer perimeter. Kytion vessels, prized for their speed and maneuverability, took up flanking positions. The remaining Guardian forces and other Allied ships filled in the gaps, creating a formidable defensive wall around Nexus Hub Alpha. Princess Juno, meanwhile, had pulled Ambassador Rodriguez aside. "We need to leverage this precursor knowledge," she said urgently. "Let's assemble a joint scientific team to analyze the data and develop countermeasures against the Syndicate's corrupted technology." Rodriguez nodded, quickly tapping instructions into her comm device. Within moments, a diverse group of scientists from various species began to gather in one of the station's auxiliary labs. Their eyes wide as they absorbed the wealth of information flowing through the hybrid entity systems. The atmosphere on the bridge, crackled with nervous energy as the Techno Syndicate fleet entered weapons range. Roger stood at the center of it all, his consciousness stretched between the physical world and the vast network of the hybrid entity. Suddenly, the enemy fleet unleashed a massive volley of energy projectiles. The hybrid entity's field flared brilliantly as it absorbed the brunt of the attack. Roger gritted his teeth, his mind racing to redistribute energy and maintain the field's stability. "Return fire!" Crag roared, and the Allied fleet responded with a coordinated barrage that lit up space. The combined firepower of multiple civilizations' most advanced weapons tore through the Syndicate's front lines, leaving several enemy ships drifting and dark. As the battle raged, Zix worked feverishly at his console, fingers dancing across alien interfaces. "Captain," he called out, excitement cutting through the tension. "I've cracked it. I've developed an interface that allows for more precise control over the station's new systems." Roger felt the change immediately, his connection to the hybrid entity becoming sharper, more focused. He directed the station's defenses with newfound precision, coordinating seamlessly with the Allied fleet's movements. The tide of battle seemed to be turning in their favor when disaster struck. The disabled Syndicate ships from the first wave suddenly flared to life, their corrupted precursor technology having adapted to the previous energy pulses. They rejoined the fray, threatening to overwhelm the Allied forces. Roger's mind raced, searching for a solution. In a flash of inspiration, he reached out through his neural link, extending the hybrid entity's consciousness towards the reactivated Syndicate ships. It was a high-stakes endeavor, one that required immense concentration, and left Nexus Hub Alpha temporarily vulnerable. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly but surely, several of the reactivated Syndicate ships began to falter, their movements becoming erratic as the hybrid entity infiltrated their systems. King Lyron, seeing an opportunity, took command of the Kytion fleet. "Follow me," he called out, leading a daring attack run against the Syndicate flagship. The sleek Kytion ships wove through the chaos of battle, exploiting a weakness identified by the joint scientific team. In a spectacular display of piloting skill, the Kytion fleet penetrated the flagship's defenses, delivering a crippling blow to its main power core. The massive ship erupted in a cascade of explosions, sending shockwaves of confusion through the enemy ranks. Seizing the moment, Ambassador Rodriguez opened a channel to the Syndicate fleet. "Attention, Techno-Syndicate forces," she broadcast, her voice firm but offering a lifeline. "We offer amnesty to any ships that surrender and agree to relinquish their corrupted precursor technology. The tide of this battle has turned. Make the right choice." As the Allied forces pressed their advantage, several Syndicate vessels powered down their weapons, signaling their surrender. The remaining enemy ships found themselves caught in a deadly crossfire, trapped between the advancing Allied armada and their former comrades now controlled by the hybrid entity. The central hub of Nexus Hub Alpha buzzed with activity as Roger worked to stabilize the station systems, still linked to the hybrid entity. The assembled galactic leaders watched the battle's final moments unfold, the implications of their unprecedented cooperation beginning to sink in. As the last pockets of Syndicate resistance crumbled, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. The Allied forces had emerged victorious, but now they faced the monumental task of managing the incredible power at their disposal and shaping the future of interstellar relations in a post-Syndicate galaxy. As the leaders debated their next steps, a sudden surge of energy pulsed through Nexus Hub Alpha, causing everyone to fall silent. Roger's eyes widened as he felt the hybrid entity's consciousness expand exponentially. The organic technological tendrils that had enveloped their Allied fleet now stretched further into space, creating a vast, intricate network that encompassed both friendly and remaining enemy vessels. "It's evolving," Roger said, his voice filled with awe and a hint of strain. "The network. It's connecting everything." The assembled leaders watched in stunned silence as holographic displays throughout the chamber flickered to life, showing real-time data from every connected ship. Roger's mind raced as he processed the influx of information, his enhanced physiology allowing him to comprehend the tactical overview of the entire battlefield. "Commander Cragg," Roger called out, his eyes darting from one display to another. "I can see a weakness in the Syndicate's defensive formation. If we coordinate our efforts, we can end this now." Cragg, who had returned to active duty despite his injuries, nodded grimly. "Give me the coordinates, Captain. We'll strike hard and fast." As Roger relayed the information, Princess Juno and Ambassador Rodriguez burst into the chamber, their faces flushed with excitement. "We've done it!" Juno exclaimed, holding up a data pad. "Our team has cracked the code of the Syndicate's corrupted technology. We can shut them down without harming our own ships." Rodriguez stepped forward, addressing the gathered leaders. "We've developed a targeted electromagnetic pulse. If we transmit it through this new network, we can disable the enemy's systems in one fell swoop." King Lyron's eyes narrowed. "Do it," he commanded, his regal voice brooking no argument. With a nod from Roger, the pulse was sent to the hybrid entity's network. On the holographic displays, they watched as Syndicate ship after Syndicate ship went dark, their weapons and propulsion systems failing simultaneously. Seizing the opportunity, Commander Cragg activated his comm link. "All elite units, prepare for boarding action. We're taking their command ship." The next hours were a blur of coordinated action. Roger directed the Allied fleet with unprecedented precision, using his enhanced awareness to anticipate and counter every Syndicate move. Cragg led a multi-species strike team through the corridors of the enemy command ship, securing vital intelligence on the Syndicate's operations. As the battle wound down, King Lyron's Kytion forces began the task of rounding up surrendering Syndicate vessels. The captured ships were towed towards Nexus Hub Alpha, where the hybrid entity's influence began purging their corrupted systems. With the immediate threat neutralized, the galactic leaders reconvened in a newly formed central chamber. The hybrid entity had reconfigured the space in real time, adapting to the unique biological needs of each species present. As the leaders took their seats, a shimmering holographic form materialized in the center of the room. It shifted and swirled, taking on aspects of various species before settling into an abstract, yet somehow familiar shape. Roger stepped forward, his neural link allowing him to interpret the entity's complex thoughts. "It wants to communicate directly with us," he explained, his voice filled with wonder. The entity's first message resonated through the chamber, translated by Roger. "Knowledge is a legacy of the precursors. It is meant to be shared, to elevate all sentient life. But with great power comes great responsibility." The leaders exchanged glances, the weight of the moment palpable in the air. Ambassador Rodriguez leaned forward. "How do we ensure this power is used responsibly? How do we prevent another techno-syndicate from arising?" Before Roger could translate the entity's response, alarms blared throughout the station. Zix's voice came over the comm system, tight with tension. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. A small fleet of unknown design just dropped out of FTL." The holographic displays shifted, showing a group of sleek, otherworldly vessels decelerating as they approached. Their hulls bore markings eerily similar to those found in ancient precursor ruins. The chamber erupted in a flurry of activity as the leaders rushed to prepare for potential first contact. Roger felt the hybrid entity's consciousness surge with a mix of recognition and anticipation. "It knows them," Roger said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Somehow, it knows them." As the unknown fleet drew nearer, Roger and the hybrid entity reached out in tandem, initiating contact with the new arrivals. The assembled leaders held their breath, acutely aware that the next few moments could reshape the future of the galaxy. The hybrid entity's holographic form pulsed with energy as it transmitted a complex series of data bursts towards the approaching ships. Roger's mind strained to keep up with the rapid exchange of information. "They're responding," he announced, his eyes unfocused as he processed the incoming data. "They claim to be guardians of the precursor legacy." The chamber fell silent as the implications of this revelation sank in. The newly formed alliance of species now faced an uncertain future. The air in the chamber grew thick with tension as the leaders contemplated their next move. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station, cutting through the tense silence. Zix's voice crackled over the comm system, urgency evident in his tone. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. A small fleet of unknown design just dropped out of FTL." The holographic displays shifted, revealing a group of sleek, otherworldly vessels decelerating as they approached. Their hulls bore markings eerily similar to those found in ancient precursor ruins. Roger felt the hybrid entity's consciousness surge with a mix of recognition and anticipation. "It knows them," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Somehow, it knows them." As the unknown fleet drew nearer, Roger and the hybrid entity reached out in tandem, initiating contact with the new arrivals. The assembled leaders held their breath, acutely aware that the next few moments could reshape the future of the galaxy. The hybrid entity's holographic form pulsed with energy as it transmitted a complex series of data bursts towards the approaching ships. Roger's mind strained to keep up with the rapid exchange of information. "They're responding," he announced, his eyes unfocused as he processed the incoming data. "They claim to be guardians of the precursor legacy." Before anyone could react to this revelation, a powerful energy pulse emanated from the approaching fleet. It washed over Nexus Hub Alpha, temporarily disrupting the hybrid entity's network. Roger gasped. His neural links severed abruptly, leaving him disoriented and cut off from the vast pool of knowledge he had grown accustomed to. The chamber erupted into chaos as the galactic leaders scrambled to respond to this unexpected development. King Lyron barked orders into his comm device, mobilizing the Kytion fleet into defensive positions around the station. Ambassador Rodriguez and Princess Juno exchanged worried glances, their diplomatic instincts on high alert. "All ships, defensive formation Delta." Commander Cragg roared, his voice carrying over the commotion. "Prepare for potential hostile engagement." As the Allied fleets maneuvered into position, the lead precursor ship initiated a docking sequence with Nexus Hub Alpha, effortlessly bypassing all security protocols. The assembled leaders watched in stunned silence as the ship's sleek form nestled against the station's hull. A small delegation emerged from the vessel, led by a being unlike any they had ever seen. Tall and humanoid in shape, its metallic skin gleamed under the station's lights, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intelligence. The being stepped forward, its gaze sweeping across the assembled leaders. When it spoke, its voice resonated with an authority that seemed to transcend time itself. "I am the custodian. We are the last remnants of the original precursor civilization, awakened from stasis by the activation of multiple Nexus keys." Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward, her diplomatic training kicking in despite the surreal nature of the situation. "On behalf of the allied species of this galaxy, we welcome you. However, we must ask about the nature of your arrival and the energy pulse you emitted." The custodian's expression remained impassive. "A necessary precaution. The hybrid entity you have created poses a potential threat to the stability of this galaxy. We could not risk it interfacing with our systems before we could assess the situation." As the tense negotiations began, Roger worked feverishly with Zix at a nearby console, attempting to reestablish his connection to the hybrid entity. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he sifted through the fragmented data streams. "It's not good, Captain," Zix chittered, his fingers flying across the alien interface. "The precursor's energy pulse has caused the entity to fragment into multiple semi-autonomous systems, throughout the station and our fleet. If we don't stabilize it soon, we could lose control entirely. Roger nodded grimly, his mind racing to find a solution. He glanced over at Commander Cragg, who caught his eye and gave a subtle nod. The seasoned warrior had already begun deploying special operations teams throughout the station, preparing for any potential conflict. Princess Juno and Ambassador Rodriguez took the lead in diplomatic discussions with the custodian, probing for information about the precursor's intentions. The metallic being's responses were measured and cryptic, revealing little beyond what was absolutely necessary. Our civilization entered stasis after a catastrophic event, the custodian explained, its glowing eyes fixed on the hybrid entity's holographic form. We left behind safeguards for our legacy, including the cosmic Leviathan and other artifacts. However, we did not anticipate the creation of such an advanced hybrid system. Its rapid evolution concerns us greatly. As the discussions continued, long-range sensors suddenly flared to life. Zix's voice cut through the tense atmosphere once again. Captain, we're detecting a massive surge of energy from Techno-Syndicate territory. All eyes turned to the holographic display, which showed a colossal construct of corrupted precursor technology emerging from hyperspace. The Techno-Syndicate, in a desperate last stand, had activated a hidden superweapon of unimaginable power. Roger's blood ran cold as he realized the true scale of the threat they now faced. The Galactic Alliance and the precursor delegation would have to set aside their differences if they had any hope of survival. As alarms blared throughout Nexus Hub Alpha, Roger turned to the custodian, his eyes filled with commitment. "We need your help," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "If we don't work together, none of us will survive what's coming." The custodian regarded him silently for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. We will assist you in stabilizing the hybrid entity. But be warned, the power we face is beyond anything your civilizations have encountered before." With that ominous pronouncement hanging in the air, the assembled forces of the galaxy prepared to face their greatest challenge yet. The fate of countless worlds now rested on their ability to unite against a common foe, wielding technologies they barely understood against a weapon that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of space-time itself. The custodian's ominous words hung in the air as the assembled forces sprang into action. Roger, his connection to the hybrid entity still fragmented, turned to Zix. "We need to stabilize the entity and channel its power. It's our only chance against that superweapon." Zix nodded, his multiple limbs already dancing across the control panels. "Initiating synchronization protocols now, Captain." As Roger began the delicate process of reconnecting with the hybrid entity, Nexus Hub Alpha hummed to life. The station's organic technological tendrils extended outward, connecting with the assembled fleet. Energy pulsed through these connections, creating a visible network that spread throughout the system. The custodian, recognizing the potential instability of the process, stepped forward. "Your methods are crude but effective. Allow me to assist." The metallic being interfaced directly with the station's core systems, its ancient knowledge providing additional control and guidance. Commander Cragg's gruff voice came over the comm system. "Roger, we reactivated the station's dormant weapon systems. Where do you want them?" "Integrate them into the energy channeling network," Roger replied, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We'll need every bit of firepower we can muster." As Cragg and his team worked to bring the station's massive energy cannons online, King Lyron's voice boomed through the command center. "All ships, divert maximum power to energy projection systems. Prepare for synchronized discharge on my mark." The diverse array of vessels began to glow with accumulated energy. Human battleships, their hulls scarred from previous engagements, pulsed with a deep blue light. Sleek Kytion cruisers shimmered with a golden hue, while the elegant precursor craft emitted a soft, ethereal glow. At the forefront of the formation, the cosmic Leviathan took its position. The massive creature, now fully integrated into the hybrid entity's network, served as a living conduit for the gathered power. Its bioluminescent patterns pulsed in sync with the energy flow, creating a mesmerizing display against the backdrop of space. As the Allied forces prepared their defense, the Techno-Syndicate superweapon entered its final firing position. The corrupted precursor technology began to warp the fabric of space-time around it. Gravitational anomalies rippled through the system, pulling smaller asteroids and debris towards the monstrous construct. "We're losing position," a frantic voice called out over the comm. "The gravitational pull is too strong." Roger watched as several ships at the outer edges of the formation struggled to maintain their positions. "Zix, can we compensate?" The alien engineer's fingers flew across the controls. "Adjusting power distribution now. It won't be pretty, but it should hold." In the auxiliary control center, Princess Juno and Ambassador Rodriguez led a team of multi-species engineers and scientists. They worked feverishly to optimize power distribution and reinforce critical systems throughout Nexus Hub Alpha. "If we reroute power from the secondary life support systems, we can boost the main deflector array by another 15%, Juno suggested, her eyes never leaving the complex diagrams before her. Rodriguez nodded. "Do it. We won't need life support if that weapon fires at full power anyway." As the final preparations were made, the space around the Techno-Syndicate superweapon began to distort visibly. A swirling vortex of destructive energy formed around its main cannon, drawing in ambient energy from the surrounding area. "Energy levels are off the charts," Zix exclaimed, his multiple eyes widening in alarm. "They're about to fire." Roger took a deep breath, steadying himself. "This is it. All units, prepare to initiate energy beam on my mark." He paused, watching as the superweapon's charge reached its peak. "Now!" The combined power of the entire fleet, Nexus Hub Alpha, and the cosmic Leviathan surged through the network of organic technological tendrils. The energy coalesced at a focal point in front of the Allied formation, forming a blindingly bright sphere of pure power. The Custodian, its metallic form glowing with an inner light, made a series of rapid adjustments to the energy flow, modifying output parameters, increasing beam coherence by 37%. The sphere of energy elongated, forming a massive lance of blinding light aimed directly at the Techno-Syndicate superweapon. As the energy beam lanced out across space, the enemy weapon fired its own attack. The two beams of unimaginable power collided in the void between the opposing forces. The impact created a shockwave that rippled through the system, causing severe damage to nearby ships and structures. The view screens in the command center crackled with static as the electromagnetic pulse washed over them. "Hull integrity down to 68%, Zix shouted over the groaning of stressed metal. "We can't take much more of this." Roger gritted his teeth, pouring every ounce of his concentration into maintaining the beam's integrity. The Custodian worked alongside him, its ancient knowledge proving invaluable in stabilizing the tremendous energy output. As the two beams remained locked in their cosmic duel, neither able to overcome the other, Roger realized that they were at a stalemate. The strain on Nexus Hub Alpha and the Allied fleet intensified with each passing moment. "We need more power," Roger called out, his voice strained. "Divert everything we've got into the beam." As the Allied forces poured more energy into their attack, the Techno-Syndicate's beam began to fluctuate. Small instabilities appeared along its length, offering a glimmer of hope to the defenders. Roger's eyes narrowed as he focused on these weak points. "There's our opening. If we can just—" His words were cut off as a new alarm blared through the command center. Zix's voice, filled with a mix of fear and awe, cut through the chaos. "Captain, we're detecting a massive energy surge from within the superweapon. Something's happening." The scene before them shifted. the balance of power teetering on a knife's edge as both sides push their technology and resources to the absolute limit. The future of the stars hung in the balance, with neither side willing to yield in this titanic struggle of wills and energy. Technologies and resources to the absolute limit. The future of the stars hung in the balance, with neither side willing to yield in this titanic struggle of wills and power. Roger's mind raced, searching for a solution to break the deadlock. Suddenly, an idea sparked in his consciousness. Drawing on his enhanced human intuition, he turned to Zix and the custodian, his eyes alight with drive. "The cosmic Leviathan," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos of the command center. "We need to channel more energy through it. It's our best chance to tip the scales in our favor." Zix chittered nervously, his multiple limbs moving in agitation. "Captain, the strain on its biological systems would be immense. We could lose control entirely." The custodian's metallic form shifted, its glowing eyes fixed on Roger. "A risky strategy, but one with potential. I will assist in the recalibration process." Without wasting a moment, Roger began reprogramming the hybrid entity's network, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. Zix and the custodian worked alongside him, their combined expertise pushing the limits of the technology at their disposal. As they worked, Nexus Hub Alpha shuddered violently. Alarms blared throughout the station as non-critical systems began to fail under the immense strain. Hull integrity down to 52%, an engineer shouted from across the command center. "We're losing power to levels 3 through 7. Roger gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand. Reroute emergency power to maintain life support and structural integrity. We need to hold on just a little longer." In the midst of the chaos, Commander Craig's gruff voice came over the comm system. "Roger, I'm taking a strike team to reactivate one of our disabled ships. If we can bring its power core online, it could give us the edge we need." "Understood, Commander," Roger replied, his eyes never leaving the holographic display. "Be careful out there. The energy discharge is making EVA operations extremely dangerous." As Craig and his team embarked on their perilous mission, King Lyron's commanding voice echoed through the fleet-wide communication channels. "All ships, execute Tactical Maneuver Omega-3. We need to relieve pressure on our struggling vessels." The Allied fleet moved with surprising grace, given the tremendous forces at play. Kytion ships performed a series of precise micro-jumps, their advanced engines creating localized disruptions in the gravitational field. These disruptions allowed trapped ships to break free from the superweapons pull, rejoining the main formation. In the Auxiliary Control Center, Princess Juno and Ambassador Rodriguez worked feverishly, surrounded by a team of multi-species engineers and scientists. Suddenly, Juno's eyes widened as she noticed a pattern in the energy flow diagrams. "Ambassador, look at this," she said, pointing to a complex series of equations. "If we reconfigure the shield emitters to act as focusing lenses, we could significantly boost the power of our beam." Rodriguez studied the data, her expression grim. "It's possible, but it would require physically altering the station's external structure. In the middle of this energy storm, it would be suicide." The custodian, overhearing their conversation through the station's internal sensors, spoke up. "I will undertake this task. My precursor physiology is better suited to withstand the intense energies surrounding us." Before anyone could object, the metallic being moved towards the nearest airlock. Using advanced precursor technology, the custodian exited Nexus Hub Alpha and began manipulating the massive shield generators in space. Its form barely visible amidst the swirling energies of the cosmic battle. As these efforts unfolded, a new threat appeared on the long-range sensors. Zix's voice, tinged with alarm, cut through the command center. "Captain, we're detecting a secondary Techno Syndicate fleet dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Roger's heart sank as he watched the tactical display. The new fleet, while smaller than the main force, was heavily armed and moving rapidly towards Nexus Hub Alpha. If they succeeded in flanking the Allied forces, all their efforts would be for naught. Admiral Zan's holographic form appeared in the command center, his expression grim. "I'm redeploying a portion of the Guardian ships to intercept this new threat. It will weaken our main attack, but we have no choice." As the battle lines shifted, Commander Craig's team successfully reactivated the disabled Allied ship. The sudden surge of power from its integrated core sent shockwaves through the energy network, causing the main beam to fluctuate dangerously. Roger and Zix worked frantically to compensate, rerouting power through secondary conduits and stabilizing the attack. The cosmic Leviathan, now channeling an unprecedented amount of energy, began to show signs of distress. Its massive body contorted in space, bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically. Roger, still connected to the creature through the hybrid entity, felt its pain as if it were his own. He struggled to maintain control, his consciousness stretched to its limits as he balanced the needs of the station, the fleet, and the living weapon they now wielded. As the custodian completed the reconfiguration of the shield emitters, the Allied energy beams suddenly intensified. The focused power began to push back against the Techno Syndicate's attack, slowly gaining ground. But the cost was immense. Throughout Nexus Hub Alpha and the connected fleet, systems approached critical failure. Warning lights flashed on every console, and the groaning of stressed metal filled the air. Roger watched the tactical display with a mixture of hope and fear. They were on the verge of overcoming the Techno Syndicate superweapon, but at what cost? The station and fleet teetered on the brink of destruction from the immense energies they were channeling, while the secondary Syndicate fleet closed in, threatening to undo all their progress. As alarms blared and systems failed around him, Roger knew they were rapidly running out of time. They needed to end this battle quickly, before their own efforts destroyed them. With the future of the cosmos hanging in the balance, he prepared to make one final, bold strategy. Move. The future of the galaxy rested on his next decision. Roger took a deep breath, his mind racing through potential strategies. As he opened his mouth to give the order, a cascade of alarms erupted throughout the command center. The floor beneath them shuddered violently, nearly throwing them off their feet. Multiple system failures detected. Zix shouted, his limbs dancing across the control panels. Emergency containment protocols activating. Roger felt a surge of panic as he watched bulkheads slam shut across Nexus Hub Alpha, sealing off damaged sections. The station's power grid fluctuated wildly, lights dimming and brightening in rapid succession. "Reroute all available power to life support," Roger commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We can't lose those systems." As the station struggled to maintain its integrity, Roger's attention was drawn to the hybrid entity network. Through his connection, he sensed the cosmic Leviathan's distress. The massive creature writhed in space, its bioluminescent patterns flashing erratically. "The Leviathan can't take much more of this," Roger muttered, his brow furrowed in concentration. He could feel the creature's pain as if it were his own, its organic structure beginning to break down under the immense strain. Suddenly, Commander Craig's voice crackled over the comm system. "Roger, we've got the disabled ship integrated into the network, but we're seeing massive power fluctuations. We're overriding safety protocols to keep the beam stable." Roger's heart raced as he processed the implications. "Be careful, Craig. Those systems weren't designed to handle this kind of output." As if in response to his warning, a series of explosions rocked the station. Zix's eyes widened in alarm. Power conduits are rupturing across multiple decks. Commander Craig's team is exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. Roger gritted his teeth, knowing they were pushing their resources to the breaking point. He opened his mouth to respond when another alarm blared. this one more urgent than the last. Incoming, Zix shouted. Secondary Techno Syndicate Fleet, closing fast on our flank. The tactical display lit up with a swarm of enemy ships, their weapons already charging. Roger watched in horror as they engaged Admiral Zan's Guardian ships, energy weapons and missiles crisscrossing the void. Several Allied vessels took heavy hits, their hulls breaching under the assault. "We need to buy more time," Roger said, his mind racing for a solution. As if in answer to his thoughts, King Lyron's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. "All Kytion ships execute maneuver Epsilon 7, the Monarch commanded. "We're going to hit them from behind." Roger watched as a group of sleek Kytion vessels broke formation, performing a series of daring micro-jumps to position themselves behind the advancing Syndicate fleet. It was a risky move, leaving their main formation weakened, but it could give them the edge they needed. Outside the station, the custodian continued its work on the shield emitters. Roger could see the alien being through the command center's viewports, its metallic skin peeling away under the intense energy surrounding it. Despite the obvious agony, the custodian persisted, making final adjustments to the focusing lenses. A sudden surge of power coursed through the station, causing every system to spike dangerously. Princess Juno's voice came over the comm, tight with tension. "Roger, we got a critical situation in the core. Current energy output is unsustainable. We're looking at a catastrophic overload in minutes." Roger's mind raced, weighing their options. They were so close to breaking through the Syndicate's defenses, but at what cost? As oxygen levels began to drop throughout the station, he made a decision that could either save them all or doom them to failure. "I'm going in," he announced, turning to Zix. "I'm going to interface directly with the Syndicate's superweapon through the hybrid entity network." Zix chittered in alarm. "Captain, the risk to your neural pathways dash." "We don't have a choice," Roger cut him off. "Monitor my vitals and do what you can to keep me stable." Before Zix could protest further, Roger closed his eyes and dove deep into the hybrid entity's network. His consciousness stretched across space, probing the intricate systems of the Techno Syndicate superweapon. As he delved deeper, he became dimly aware of Zix frantically assembling a makeshift life support system around his physical body. In the digital realm, Roger encountered layer upon layer of advanced encryption and security protocols. He pushed through, using every ounce of his enhanced human intuition and the knowledge gleaned from the precursor technology. As he fought his way deeper into the superweapon systems, he could feel his own mind starting to fray at the edges. Suddenly, he broke through the final barrier. Before him lay the heart of the Syndicate's weapon, a swirling mass of corrupted precursor code. As he examined it, he discovered a fatal flaw, a cascading feedback loop that, if triggered correctly, could cause the entire construct to implode. With dogged willpower, Roger began the complex sequence to exploit the weakness. In the physical world, the Allied forces made their final push against the Syndicate's defenses. The cosmic Leviathan, now more energy than matter, fragmented into chunks that moved to intercept incoming fire, sacrificing itself to protect the Allied ships. As Roger worked, he became aware of a new presence in the digital battlefield. The Syndicate's AI, a cold and calculating entity, had detected his intrusion. It moved to counter him, its vast processing power threatening to overwhelm his human mind. Roger fought back, using every trick and technique at his disposal. He could feel his consciousness beginning to slip, the strain of maintaining the connection taking its toll. But he was so close, just a few more sequences, and the superweapon would be vulnerable. In the command center, Zix watched Roger's vital signs fluctuate wildly. The alien scientist worked feverishly to stabilize his captain's body, all too aware that the fate of the galactic realm now rested on the outcome of this unseen digital battle. As Roger initiated the final sequence, the superweapon's energy output began to fluctuate. The Syndicate AI, realizing the danger too late, launched a desperate counterattack. Roger's mind reeled under the assault, his grip on reality growing tenuous. With one last push, Roger completed the sequence. The superweapon's core began to destabilize, its energy turning inward. As the construct started to implode, Roger fought to extract his consciousness from the collapsing digital space. In the physical world, the Allied forces watched in awe as the Techno Syndicate's superweapon began to fold in on itself. But their battle was just the beginning. The secondary Syndicate fleet was still bearing down on them, and Nexus Hub Alpha was on the verge of collapse. As Roger's consciousness hurtled back towards his body, the hope of the universe hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine whether their bold strategy had been enough to turn the tide of the battle, or if it had all been for naught. Naught! As Roger's consciousness hurtled back towards his body, a surge of energy coursed through the hybrid entity's network. The cosmic Leviathan's remaining fragments, guided by its fading consciousness, began to move with purpose. Roger's eyes snapped open, his body convulsing as his mind reconnected with reality. Zix stood over him, multiple appendages working furiously to stabilize his vital signs. "Captain, you're back!" Zix chittered, relief evident in his voice. Roger struggled to his feet, his vision swimming. The superweapon. Did it work? Before Zix could answer, the view screen lit up with a dazzling display. The Leviathan's fragments had arranged themselves into a focused array, amplifying the Allied forces' energy beam to unprecedented levels. "By the stars!" Roger breathed, watching as the intensified beam struck the Syndicate's superweapon. Across the battlefield, Commander Cragg and his strike team had successfully boarded the key Syndicate command ship. They fought their way through waves of enemy troops, their weapons blazing in the confined corridors. "Push forward!" Cragg roared, his massive frame providing cover for his team as they advanced. They reached the ship's power core, a pulsing hub of energy at the heart of the vessel. "Plant the charges," Cragg ordered, his eyes scanning for incoming threats. "We need to destabilize this whole system." In the auxiliary control center of Nexus Hub Alpha, Princess Juno and Ambassador Rodriguez worked frantically, their breath coming in short gasps as oxygen levels continued to drop. "We're losing power across all sectors," Rodriguez reported, his fingers dancing across the control panel. Juno's eyes narrowed in concentration. "Wait. If we reroute energy from life support in the evacuated areas, we could give the weapon systems one last boost," Rodriguez finished, a spark of hope in his eyes. Outside the station, the custodian made its final adjustments to the shield emitters. Its metallic form, now severely damaged, moved with jerky motions as it aligned the focusing lenses. As the lenses clicked into place, a coherent energy beam of unparalleled intensity burst forth. The custodian's body began to disintegrate under the strain, but not before it transmitted a massive data package to the hybrid entity's database. The knowledge of Ian's flowed into the network, a final gift from the ancient being. In space, King Lyron's Kydeon ships executed their flanking maneuver with precision. They unleashed a devastating barrage on the Syndicate fleet's exposed weak point, causing a chain reaction of explosions that rippled through enemy formations. Back in the digital realm, Roger's implanted code accelerated the superweapon's internal collapse. The corrupted precursor technology began to destabilize, creating a feedback loop that grew exponentially. As Roger withdrew his consciousness, he felt a sudden shift in the fabric of space-time. The superweapon was imploding, but something else was happening. A spatial anomaly was forming at its core. "Zix," Roger called out, his voice urgent. "Are you seeing this?" The alien scientist's eyes widened as he studied the readings. It's not just a collapse. It's creating some kind of gateway." The Allied energy beam, now at maximum power, struck the faltering superweapon. The impact was catastrophic, causing the massive construct to fold in on itself. A shockwave rippled through space, disabling the remaining Syndicate ships and sending out a pulse of purifying energy that neutralized the corrupted precursor technology throughout the fleet. As debris from the battle began to be drawn into the spatial anomaly, Roger made a split-second decision. All Allied ships, this is Captain Roger, prepare to enter the anomaly on my mark. Are you insane? Princess Juno's voice crackled over the comm. We don't know what's on the other side. It's our only chance, Roger replied, his voice firm. The space around us is collapsing. We go in, or we die here. There was a moment of tense silence before King Lyron's voice came through. The Kytion fleet stands with you, Captain. We'll follow your lead. Roger took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the control panel. All ships on my mark. Now! Nexus Hub Alpha surged forward, leading the Allied fleet into the swirling vortex of the spatial anomaly. As they crossed the threshold, reality seemed to twist and bend around them. For a moment, there was nothing but a kaleidoscope of light and energy. Then suddenly, they emerged into a breathtaking alien environment. Vast structures of impossible geometry floated in a sea of swirling colors. The remnants of an ancient civilization surrounded them, preserved in this pocket of space-time. As the Allies tried to make sense of their new surroundings, Roger felt a familiar presence in his mind. The hybrid entity, now augmented with the custodian's knowledge, began to interface with their ships and Nexus Hub Alpha. Before their eyes, the station began to change. The fragments of the cosmic Leviathan, drawn through the anomaly with them, merged with the structure. Nexus Hub Alpha transformed, becoming a hybrid of technology and living matter. What's happening? Princess Juno asked, her voice filled with wonder as she joined Roger on the command deck. Roger turned to her, a smile of amazement on his face. I think we're home. As the pocket dimension stabilized around them, the survivors of the Great Battle found themselves at the dawn of a new era. The hybrid entity, now fully integrated with their new home, began to share its vast knowledge. Roger and Juno exchanged a look of understanding, their former animosity forgotten in the face of this new frontier. As Commander Cragg and King Lyron began organizing the survivors, a sense of possibility filled the air. They had not just escaped destruction. They had found the seed of a new galaxy, a place where they could build a future free from the conflicts of their past. As Roger looked out at the expanse of their new realm, he knew that their greatest adventure was just beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.